Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Villado. Tonight I'm a little bit under the weather. I don't know if you can hear it. Not feeling my best. I have these grandma glasses on, as Nick calls them.
Yes.
For
Jeffrey Dahmer glasses.
What'd you say?
The Jeffrey Dahmer glasses.
Wow, don't go that far. I bought into this idea that there are harmful blue light rays coming in from the computer screens at night that impact your sleep. So I wear these things, already feeling under the weather from a lack of sleep. Maybe it's because I was yelling in my basement watching that Giants game yesterday, and I got really excited. I don't know what got me this way, but we're fighting through. We're pushing through. There's great film to get to. We didn't want to wait another day. Could have pushed it off, said I was sick, could have pushed it off. But you know what? Let's get to this. There's some really good tape, Nick, to go over here from the Giants offense. This is my most impressive performance by the offense on film that I've seen this season. We like to start this thing off with, like, what did we learn from the film that we might not have seen? This is not something we really learned for me, Nick, but, man, Mike Kafka figures out a way to really call passing route concepts and combinations that take advantage of what the defense is doing. It's just every week with this dude. And another thing is, like, they're blocking really well in the run game. That's not everyone. It's not to say everyone. I'm going to have my gripes today with John Feliciano in the run game on a couple plays, one specific. I'm going to have my gripes with Ben Bredesen in the run game. But, you know, when you have these tight ends chipping in the run game, when you have even like we talked about on the last podcast, running backs chipping in on the run in the blocking game, receivers, it doesn't necessarily always matter when not everyone's doing a perfect job because you have the collective power there. And so this is a team right now that's really practicing and playing offense at a level that I would have never expected week 5 of a new regime. And so I guess the main thing I learned here is more of the same. They're taking advantage of what the defense is doing, and they're really calling a great game and executing a great game for what they are right now. And that's interesting. It brings me to my next thing, Nick, that I want to go over with you. Do you see Dan Orlowsky's take on the Giants offense right now? I've tweeted it out a bit earlier.
I did not see it.
He basically was saying, he broke down how the Giants went 9 for 10 in this game for 99 yards on play action passing. The Giants at this point lead the NFL in play action passing, which I think is a good thing. And what he said was the Giants have used on more than 200 versus 100 plays. So more than double the plays the Giants have called either bootleg action, play action, RPO versus traditional dropbacks. And what he said is the reason he loves it so much is it took Daniel Jones's biggest weakness, which is dropping back into a pocket and panicking under pressure and just feeling the pressure too early, making poor decisions, not reading, locking on things. And it minimized it because it's, having him move out, having him make the fine reads. And I feel like this was another example of just really good plays that put the skill set of Daniel Jones into the forefront here for the Giants. Like you see one play where they have, we'll get to a bunch of these, but you see one play where they have even a half-field high-low read, something we've seen in the past Daniel Jones find success with under Pat Shurmur. And there's been a lot of these half-field reads. And that's one thing we'll talk about at some point this season, Nick, because I still don't feel like he's really making full-field progressions in this offense. They're really limiting to half the field most of the time, which has its limitations. Breida was open on an arrow route we'll go over later in the game. That was wide open touchdown, just never part of the progression, or he's just not looking that way. But as far as what can you do right now with this offense, with the receivers they have in place, and the offensive line with a left guard and center situation, this is the perfect offense for Daniel Jones and for any quarterback, really, I would think at this point. So I really like what they've done, and I thought that was an astute take by Dan Orlovsky.
Yeah, I had a whole kind of paragraph in my mind that I wanted to touch on with that. And I didn't see the Dan Orlovsky take, but it's evident on film. Like, what did they have, Dan? Like 5 true pass sets that didn't involve play action?
Right.
Like, is that sustainable? Does that seem sustainable? I mean, I can see how that can be perceived as a slight on the offensive line, and to maybe some extent that's true, as we saw in the Week 3 game against the Dallas Cowboys. But I think we can also argue that it maximizes the offensive line a little bit because this offensive line does a good job climbing to the second level. So blocking laterally will allow them to at least use their athletic ability and also use a bit of deception to get Daniel Jones to amplify his talents, which is get him on the run, allow him to get comfortable, allow him to use his athletic ability, and give him those easy options like we talked about with like the block and the chip and the release from Daniel Bellinger. Just give him the options, man, and allow him to cook, mobily. Like he's kind of like a food truck, he's not in the kitchen like Russell Wilson used to be. He's like a food truck, Daniel Jones.
A food truck. That's an interesting reference. I haven't heard you make that one. But yeah, I mean, look, for where they're at right now, I like it. Is this sustainable long term? I don't know. Is this whole idea of having a quarterback who's really just reading half the field sustainable? I don't know. I mean, look, it's working right now. And I think with where they're at, it's the perfect thing. And I just generally like the idea of running a heavy play action offense. But at some point, you obviously want to have the full field available to you as a quarterback, and obviously a drop back game, because it's not always going to, like right now, they're figuring out ways to get through these third and long situations. But there will be times where they're going to fall behind by 14 points, 17 points, 20 points, whatever it is. And they're going to have to really pick up yards fast in the passing game traditionally.
Yes. And I will say this about Mike Kafka, Dan. He's a tendency exploiter. And I think that's a good way to put it. Because any tendency that a defense has, if that defense shows something on the prior drive, a look that the Giants throw out there, and then the defense is successful, he's going to go back to that, but he's going to do something different. It's going to be something that's going to take advantage of what the defense did before. It always seems like Mike Kafka and this coaching staff in general, you can put Wink Martindale in there and obviously Brian Dable. He's a step ahead. Like if this was a chess game, he's always a step ahead of his opponents, and he always has an answer to whatever they're doing. And I think that is just such a great position for this New York Giants offense to be in. Like we've said so many times, I mean, the current state of the wide receiver position, Daniel Jones is playing his best football. The offensive line and pass protection isn't great, but despite all that, they're 4-1, and they just beat Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers on the road with just these massive drives in the second half to sustain the football and keep just pushing it down the field. So we're going to get into it here in the film a little bit, but that would be one of my takeaways, is that he's a tendency exploiter. And also, you touched on run blocking about 5 minutes ago or so, Dan. What I love the most, and we brought this up, I think, on the Quick Reaction podcast, is how the backside blocks are able to execute their blocks, get up to the second level to take away those pursuit defenders. I think that is a big reason why all of these runs are being sprung, all these long Saquon Barkley runs. It's a credit to Saquon Barkley, but it's also a credit to the backside blocks and their ability to get up to the second level quickly. And we talked about it in the offseason, right? Glowinski, he's a better run blocker, and he's actually pretty damn good in space. He's not the best pass protector. Josh Azudu, who isn't playing right now. But one reason why we love Josh Azudu was because he has that type of mobility to be that type of difference maker as a blocker once he gets fully up to speed. So I think that is a huge part to what the New York Giants are doing and why they're having success on the ground.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's just amazing to me to see this be the case in week 5. And it's been the case really all season long for an offense that over the past however many years, really 5, I don't know, this goes back probably like 8-9 years, has just generated nothing in the run game. They didn't have that. Like since 2008, you could argue 2009 had some remnants of it. But since that's a long time now, that's over a decade of football where they're just struggling to get anything going in the run game. They didn't have players climbing to the second level. They didn't have backside blocks. They didn't have them all working continuity. They weren't springing big plays. Like even in Barkley's breakout season as a rookie in 2018, I didn't feel like from watch, and this is all based on memory, but I don't feel like I remember too many unbelievably blocked plays. There were some really nice blocks downfield by like Sterling Shepard later in the play, but it was mostly Barkley doing crazy things. And like he was even a step, in my opinion, a step more explosive than he is now. That's not a knock on him because I think he's a better player now. He's a more efficient runner and he's getting vertical and he's making better decisions. But I do feel like he's not as explosive as he was as a rookie. And that's, again, not a knock. He was the most explosive player I've ever seen as a rookie. And he was using that in a lot of ways to win. It wasn't really via the blocking. And so it's just amazing to me that they've been able to get this up to speed so fast as a run blocking unit. And what's so interesting about it, you pointed this out earlier when you were breaking down the big Saquon Barkley run from the Wildcat, where they had the unbalanced look with like Andrew Thomas right next and Evan Neal on the right side, and they run it left, and you have like David Sills making a key block, you have Matt Breida making a key block, you have Mark Lewinsky climbing to the second level and making the real key block in that play, the one that makes it happen in the first place. But what's so interesting to me is it's a really diverse run game. It's not like the Kyle Shanahan where it's just like they're hitting you with outside zone over and over and over again, or like the Kubiak system or any of these other systems. It's more like there's new things added. There's new wrinkles added to this run game week after week after week, and it's becoming tough for these teams to prepare. Like you even showed there was the wham block that Bellinger made that led to that Breida run, which we'll talk about potentially at some point. Well, that wasn't the only one. They were using him on wham blocks and other plays in this game, and there's just new wrinkles added to this team from a run blocking standpoint week after week. It's clear that they take pride in the run game. It's clear they understand like the run game is the biggest component in our offense right now. It's what makes it's what's leading us to scoring touchdowns for the most part. And so we got to practice it and we got to execute it. And that's exactly what they're doing. But it's not that easy. That's the interesting part.
it's married so well to the passing attack because the Giants are running so much play action bootleg and play action types of passes. And the run looks the same as the pass off the play action. And that's another reason why these defenses are in such a bind. They don't know if the Giants are running the football or if they're passing the football. And that's another reason why you have that backside pursuit defender. If he's being undisciplined, always crash down, giving Daniel Jones the ability to flow outside, get lateral, get his eyes downfield, square up and throw the football. The way the running game and the passing game look is a huge reason why the Giants are also successful. And that is a credit to the coaching. That is a credit to Brian Daboll. That is a credit to Mike Kafka.
It really is. And I think in a nutshell, if you want to break down what makes the Giants offense so effective right now, as effective as it has been, it is exactly what you said. And what makes any offense effective? That's it in a nutshell. If you can marry your passing game and your run game to the point where they can't predict each play if it's going to be a run or a pass because you're doing it, you're running run plays out of these looks, but you're also running play action out of these same exact looks. That's the difference. Because a lot of these teams, when they start to run the ball, if teams don't have an effective run game, they set it up. They make it pretty obvious. The defense knows the run is coming, and it's not like they run any pass plays off of those looks. They may have a shotgun pass game. They may have a no-huddle pass game, whatever it may be, but it's not a similar pass game to their run game. The Giants are not that kind of team. Like we talked about earlier, they're running play action more than any team in the NFL. A lot of that is from under center, and that's the key, too. A lot of that play action game they've been running, which I love, is from under center. Me personally, I'm one of the biggest fans of play action in general, so I love the fact that this is now a play action heavy offense. Motion is something we needed. We got it this season. Thank God we moved to the modern era. But play action is not something I was guaranteed to get, especially after watching the Brian Daboll offense. And even really that Chiefs offense doesn't really look, and with Kafka's coming from, doesn't really look anything like the Giants offense looks right now. They really pass to open up the run. Same with the Bills. And so, and then even some of their play action is out of shotgun. So, and the Giants have mixed that in as well. I want to make that clear. But it's just great to see what you just said, man. Like, it's a team that on offense, you can't know based on how they line up and their personnel grouping if they're going to run or pass. And that, when you have that uncertainty, you keep the defense on their heels the whole game, and you give yourself the best chance to win.
The coaching adjusts to their personnel. Like we said, they didn't have a running back like Saquon Barkley in Kansas City or in Buffalo, and their quarterbacks were better than what Daniel Jones currently is right now. So you adjust your scheme to your personnel. That's a testament to just great coaching. And another thing, you brought up the wham block before. I saw a wham block and I saw a trap block. Haven't seen many of those this season. Now people are like, oh, the split zone, that's a trap block. That I don't constitute that as a trap block. A trap block is when a backside guard kicks back, and so basically what happens is a defensive lineman is allowed to just go and penetrate. So there's a defensive lineman over the top of an offensive guard. The offensive guard lets him pass, and then the backside offensive guard essentially pulls and just ear holes him, and he doesn't see it coming. That's a trap block. And then a wham block is essentially the same thing, only you're using a tight end or an H-back to do that. And we saw one trap block in this game, and we saw one wham block with Daniel Bellinger. And if you look, that defender who ends up getting trapped or whammed, he's covered, and then he goes to engage like Mark Lewinsky or whoever it is, and Mark Lewinsky just lets him go right past, and he's like, oh, I'm in the backfield. Next thing you know, he's getting contacted, and Saquon Barkley's running past him. We'll go over all that, though, in the film review part of this.
Yeah, so let's dive into the film right now. But before we do that, I just kind of want to go over something I found so interesting about this game. The Giants had 2 punts to start the game. They went 3 and out to start the game before they made adjustments. They didn't punt a single time after that. Pretty insane right there. Not including, obviously, the punt after the safety, which isn't a punt. But they went field goal, touchdown, touchdown, safety after that, which, again, was the safety. But they didn't punt again. They had 2 drives that were 7-minute plus, another drive that was 6 minutes, one drive that totaled 8 minutes. They did everything that you want from an offense in this game, including explosive plays. So I just wanted to point that out, how wild it was to see a team not punt literally after those first 2 drives. Like, you take this game after midway through the first quarter, the Giants did not punt the ball again. That is something we never, ever expected to see last year when when we were watching this and evaluating this team last year. Even going into this year, we didn't really expect it. So this was against a really good defense to pull that off. It shows that this offense is starting to gel. They're starting to get themselves together. One thing I want to ask you about actually real quick before we dive into this film here, and it looks like you're showing the first 3 and out here. I don't think there's too much to really break down, so we can kind of roll through that. But I want to ask you, and you could pause right now just because this is before we dive into this. Do you find it interesting, Nick, that somebody like Marcus Johnson is able to kind of step into a role, make plays right away in his first opportunity? I think he had 3 catches for 35 yards. in an offense that we've heard described as a difficult offense to pick up for receivers with choice routes, we've heard, look, Darius Toney hasn't picked up this offense that fast. It's not just the injuries. He wasn't used at all when he was healthy, Darius Toney. I mean, he was used a little bit, like you said, on drags and a few other concepts that weren't really anything crazy. When they tried to use him down the field, he had that offensive pass interference. How is a player like Marcus Johnson able to just get up to speed so fast within this offense in your mind?
I think it's because Marcus Johnson is a professional. And I'm not saying Kadarius Toney isn't, but Kadarius Toney is a young football player right now. Marcus Johnson has played in several different systems, and he was in another pretty complicated system in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan for a little while. He was with the Indianapolis Colts under Frank Reich, another system that is not maybe the easiest system. So I think it's just because he's been around the game for a little bit and he's a professional. And he also looked pretty solid, I would say, Dan. He's definitely a player that I'm interested in bringing back. Yeah.
He looks pretty damn good out there. And it's just interesting to me that that's a good point by you. It makes a lot of sense that, look, he's a guy who's been around a lot of systems, but I just find it interesting. We hear all about how hard this offense is to pick up. And then we have a guy come right in, look pretty spry out there. So let's dive into the film here. Are we already on to drive 2 here?
No, this is still the first drive. I just wanted to run it so people can get a look at it. This is just one where this is the third play right here. So let me go back. Transitions. Here's first down. The Giants are going to pull Daniel Bellinger. I just like this lead block from Bellinger right here. Watch him displace Rashawn Gary right there. But Saquon Barkley ends up cutting it up, and there's just not a lot of blocking. And I find it interesting too, Dan.
A real nice block by Bellinger there.
Yeah, really nice block by Bellinger. But the last 2 games and really just this season, the Giants have been slow starters on offense. They go 3 and out. They feel out the defense, and then those adjustments kick in, and then they start to find a groove. And we saw that at the start of the third drive too. We'll go over the second drive here in a second. We'll just show the plays and kind of talk over it. But on the third drive, that's when we started seeing the play action rollout. It was like the Giants were like, okay, I think, is Daniel Jones comfortable enough to use the play action rollout? We didn't see the play action rollout until that third drive. It was 2 consecutive 3 and outs. And we were all kind of, Rodney Dangerfield after that. We're like, oh, geez, this could get really rough. And luckily the Giants were able to assemble some real drives. But look, this is the second drive right here. You can see there's just not a lot going on for the Giants.
Yeah, they go 2 straight 3 and outs. One drive had 6 yards. The other drive had -7 yards. They just couldn't get it going. They went empty. They tried to go empty and hit Barkley on this deep pass, but you have an immediate breakdown here from Feliciano that really screws this play up.
I actually like this play concept, though.
I love this play concept.
And not even just the Saquon Barkley part. Like Saquon Barkley against Quay Walker. Like Saquon Barkley is going to be able to win this matchup against a lot of linebackers. That's one reason why I like it. But Quay Walker might not be one of them, at least.
He's like a 4-4 linebacker. This is like it's not really a great route by Barkley either. He doesn't sell the inside move at all. There should be, like, if you just watch him coming out of this route, there's not much separation at any point here.
He just fades. But what I love, though, is the number 2 and the number 3 receiver. You just get this little button hook right here from Daniel Bellinger, and then a flat route right down the line of scrimmage from Tanner Hudson, who has leverage on Devondre Campbell. And Dan, we'll see how Kenny Clark is just an absolute beast here on John Feliciano.
Yeah.
Oof, that's just rough. Daniel Jones
has for Jones there, right? Yeah. It's a bad rep for Feliciano. It's a tough job when he's lined up right over him there. I mean, to snap the ball and just get back up. But Feliciano, obviously, this was definitely, I thought, potentially one of the worst games Feliciano's had as a Giant so far.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I mean, it wasn't. I don't think it was
though in a run game too. It was like kind of like a mixed bag game, I guess is the better way to say it.
I felt like Bredesen was probably worse than
overall
Feliciano in this game. But yeah, this is just another drive that we'll show the third down play as we talk. It's just an attempt to take advantage of the aggressiveness. 3rd and 13 of Green Bay. Try to get the screen going.
And they had some blocking if they get it going, but if he cuts it back inside, he'd have to really make a quick Barkley move. But yeah, they were ready for the Giant screens in this game.
Yeah, Jair Alexander was all over Saquon in a lot of those plays.
Yep. That was clearly part of the game plan for Green Bay. They were not good because the Giants have been winning with the screen game a lot so far this season. And it was clear that they were not only going to not let that happen, but they were keyed on to even that first drive where they had to throw out on 3rd down to Barkley. You saw the defensive attention move all in his direction on that. It was like they knew that play was going to be designed for Barkley. So early on, you saw them kind of try to dismantle Barkley's ability to impact them in the passing game. But ultimately, the Giants found a way to get Barkley going in the passing game, which we'll get to in a bit.
And we'll transition here, Dan, to the first play of the third drive. So right now, it looks pretty bleak for the New York Giants. The Giants end up getting a field goal on this drive, 8 plays. And this is when you see the first play action rollout. Double Y set right there. They sell it really well to the field. Daniel Jones is a clean pocket, steps up and delivers an absolute strike to Darius Slayton, who wins on this route, wins inside. I love this concept. I love the fact that they were just getting Jones. He doesn't really do too much in terms of movement, but he's able to set up, and you can see he looks comfortable here. He doesn't really look hampered or anything like that.
One thing I love
too out there.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
And you have your 2 fastest receivers out there running these routes.
One thing I loved about Daniel Jones on this play, if you can slow it down a little bit or maybe go to the other view, I love 2 things. One thing that Greg Cosell broke down about Daniel Jones, for those who don't know, Greg Cosell's NFL Films guru, one of the best film guys out there. He always talked about how on these play action passes from under center, Jones did a great job as a rookie, a better job than he sees from most rookies in snapping his head around. And you could see in this example, Jones does such an excellent job here off the play action, setting his feet, snapping his head around. And he's so quick to snap his head around that it gives him the opportunity to really get into that throw early. And he needs to, because again, there's pressure coming here from his right side from 94. And so ultimately, if he takes time to get into this, it's going to be a disaster. He's probably going to get hit and he's not going to be able to make this throw. Also like how coming off the play action, he originally here sort of flashes his eyes towards the right side where there's a different route combination for snapping back and then throwing to the left. So just an excellent play here from Daniel Jones, I thought.
Yeah, we talk about going through progressions, right? You can see it right there. He's looking at Marcus Johnson. He's like, okay, both of those players right there, that safety and that cornerback, are getting cleared out. Quay Walker is not at sufficient depth. Darius Slayton's going to be open if he wins inside, and he does, and he beats Eric Stokes. Absolutely love that play.
And that's something that we'll see a lot of examples of that this game, but that's something that's been true throughout his career. He's done a really good job snapping his head around off play action, and, it helps the Giants out a lot. Here we have a run from Saquon Barkley that I had no idea how this got 5 yards. This is all Barkley here.
Yeah, it's a halfback
5-yard gain.
It's a halfback counter run. You pull the backside guard. You pull Daniel Bellinger, something that the Giants ran a lot back in 2020 with Wayne Gallman. And you can see Rashawn Gary does a really good job using a squeeze technique right there to keep that rushing lane narrow, because you want this rushing lane to be wide right here so Daniel Bellinger can lead block, take Quay Walker, and then you have Saquon Barkley against an alley defender coming down and Adrian Amos or one of the defenders over here. But that doesn't happen. The Packers play this really well, and it's just all just absolutely congested, and you can just see how Saquon Barkley makes something out of nothing there.
Yeah, that could have and should have been a loss. Like in the past, Saquon Barkley, 1,000%, I've seen it on film way too many times, cuts that outside and tries to win on the edge and ends up getting strung out. And here he does a great job. This is an interesting play on this 2nd and 5. I thought Jones did an excellent job improvising. Probably you can see it better from the other view. But to get this ball out to Bellinger was excellent. He takes a massive shot after the throw.
We want to look at the hit here. For the audio audience, this is just a play action double Y set. We're going to look at it from the sideline angle for those listening or watching on YouTube. Watch Daniel Jones take this hit from 2 Packers defenders. He goes into the play action, and it's 2 deep horizontal crossing routes, and he gets absolutely nailed, but finds Daniel Bellinger for a nice gain of, I believe it's 11 yards here or something like that, right, Dan?
And yes, and it was a really good decision by Jones, because he comes off the play action, snaps his head around, and both those deep crossers, there's nowhere to go with the football. And at that point, the pressure is already bearing down on him. So I want to give a lot of credit to Daniel Jones on this one for turning this into an 11-yard gain. This could have very, very easily just been a sack or even worse. And he takes a massive shot here. He is planted hard to the ground by 2 Packers at the same time. Daniel Jones takes a lot of hits in games. Like, you watch the film and you see it. He just takes massive shots week after week. But this was an excellent play by Jones. That, if you're looking for plays where Jones made a difference in the game, to me, that was certainly one of them.
Absolutely. When you stand in the pocket and you get nailed and you get the football out of your hands, I mean, that's just shows your toughness. It shows your leadership. It shows your poise. And the team just rallies around him. But the next play, the Giants don't really do anything on the ground. I think they get 1 yard. Daniel Bellinger is called for the hold, which set up a 1st and 19 pass where it seemed like there was a miscommunication possibly between Darius Slayton and Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones, this was his one, I would say, bad throw. I don't know if it was a miscommunication, so maybe I shouldn't say that with certainty. But it certainly seems like Daniel Jones missed a huge play opportunity to the number 3 receiver, Darius Slayton, running an over route and just running into space.
Yeah, I mean, look at it from the end zone angle. You'll kind of see it's hard when you look at it from the end zone angle to blame it on Slayton. I know a lot of people are talking about, Slayton's supposed to get his head around, but watch it from this angle, and you probably can't watch it if you're hearing. How is that really on Slayton? Look, he's looking for the ball. He's 100% looking for the ball. He's expecting it to be in front of him where it's supposed to be, but the ball's behind him. And then you see him kind of turn his head around backwards. So I know, it was hard to see on the broadcast, but now that you watch it from that angle on the film, to me, it's quite obvious that he didn't not turn his head around. As far as why was the ball placement off, I don't know. It could be, like you said, a miscommunication. I think there's a chance that Jones was expecting Slayton to run the route at a different depth to where that ball maybe should have been. Or there's a chance that he just missed the throw. I mean, quarterbacks miss with ball placement all the time. Daniel Jones actually is one of the better quarterbacks from a ball placement standpoint. So we don't see this that often, I don't think, at least not on these types of throws from Daniel Jones, which is a good thing, by the way. But there's just a chance that he just misses with ball placement here. That happens sometimes for quarterbacks, even from a purely, a really nice clean pocket like he has. You can see from that end zone angle. But yeah, obviously, as you can tell, Green Bay made a really big mistake on this. They're playing way too far. The Green Bay was playing it way too deep. All game, I thought the Green Bay defensive backs were playing at bad depth, and Giants take advantage of that. And here, like, if you get this throw on the money in stride, who knows where this play could go.
This is Green Bay. Jair Alexander actually getting a little bit too aggressive with the routes that were to his side. So for those listening, it's a 3-by-1 set with Tanner Hudson on the boundary side, so closer to the sidelines. Darius Slayton's the number 3 receiver running the deep over route. And what the Giants do, and I love this, they have Tanner Hudson just run a quick little curl route, about 3 yards, right? And then you have Saquon Barkley flare out to his side. And Tanner Hudson kind of looks like he's going to block on this play. It could at least appear that way. And that's going to draw the attention of Devondre Campbell because Saquon Barkley's going in this direction. Quay Walker and Jair Alexander kind of clamps down. And what does that do? That opens up the area of the field, right, where the 30-yard line is for those watching on the YouTube, where Jair Alexander was going to be if he was going to gain depth. So Jair Alexander is paying attention to all the routes in front of him. And that's one reason why Darius Slayton is streaking against a safety who is outside. So Darius Slayton has all the space from the numbers to the sideline here, from the hash to the sideline, even just beasted him on leverage right here. This is an excellent development for the Giants. It's just the connection wasn't there from Jones to Slayton.
And look at the Green Bay defensive back after the play, trailing on 25. He jumps up in the air. He knows he screwed up. I mean, he knows something went wrong there for there to be that much green space ahead of him. But it's just a miss. They'll look back at that and they'll go over it. But they find a way after that to pick up. It looks like 12 yards to Marcus Johnson off nice leverage. This is a good example of what Marcus Johnson can do. I thought he did an excellent job after the catch on this play and showed some good post-catch explosiveness.
This is kind of what Dan was talking about before. The Packers, I mean, it's a 2nd and 19 situation, so they're playing off. There's no reason to be up on the line of scrimmage. But the Giants and Mike Kafka are just taking what the defense gives you, right? This is especially at this area of the field. You're at your own, or you're at the Packers' 45-yard line, so you're on the fringe of being in field goal range. So you just want to get yourself into field goal range, and the Giants do that by just running like a 5-yard curl to Marcus Johnson, who then outruns Jair Alexander outside to pick up like an extra 6 or 7 yards here. So that's a great individual effort from Marcus Johnson and to put the Giants into a 3rd and 7 situation and realistic field goal range.
And I kind of like this play call in 3rd and 7. It didn't work out here. The throw maybe could have been, that throw was fine. I think he just dropped it. He was looking ahead at the green grass ahead of him. Barkley wanted to kind of set it up. And it's not like this was a totally fooled play for the Packers. He would have had to make a really good individual effort. But it is another example of the Giants looking for ways to get Saquon Barkley involved in the passing game early and often. We've now seen it on all 3 of the first drives. Clearly, it was part of the game plan. I feel like they've been expanding his receiving package, and this was a great example of that in this game, all game, not just this play. And that's a really good thing because that's something we've been talking about for years, that we want to see an expanded receiving role for Saquon Barkley. And obviously on this play, it just didn't work out.
Yeah, again, like the play, just like you said, you have 3 receivers to the field side, and then Saquon Barkley motions from the boundary side just off the ass of Marcus Johnson. And then right as he's finishing motioning, Daniel Jones just throws the football to him, and you're trying to get blockers out in space, create a cutback lane for Saquon Barkley to kind of go around, for those watching on YouTube, go around Andrew Thomas right there. But Saquon Barkley just drops the football. Giants settle for a field goal.
Yep. And so now it's 10-3 at that point because the Packers actually went up 10-0 prior to that play. And then the Packers actually go up 17-3. This was kind of the turning point for the Giants in this game. They were going to have a chance to win this game. When they got the ball back after 17-3, they pretty much needed to put points on the board. It really had to be a touchdown, I thought, just where the momentum was going. And that's exactly what they did. They put together an 11-play, 86-yard touchdown drive. And just amazing to see them respond like that after that. And ultimately, it played a key factor in them winning this game. We'll talk about other drives too, but starting off with this, was starting off with this was a play action concept here, deep concept. The Giants were trying to run just a 2-man route, really, with Barkley kind of also in there. Nothing open. I thought Jones made a really good decision here to keep it.
Yeah, I love when Jones does this. I mean, look, if you're watching on YouTube, and for those who aren't, you just have Darius Slayton basically running right up the field with Tanner Hudson running in like the deep over route. And I felt like the Packers transitioned Jair Alexander to number 26, Darnell Savage, really well to handle Tanner Hudson. And then Eric Stokes just carries Darius Slayton deep. And at that point, this is where Daniel Jones is being instructed, take the yards that are there. And this is one of the first times in the game where we saw Daniel Jones, Daniel Jones, end up actually almost hurting one of the Giants team doctors by getting knocked out of bounds there. But Daniel Jones gets on the move, and he's able to at least pick up a couple yards with his feet. And at this point, I was like, okay, that's good.
Look at that hit out.
Yeah. Poor team doctor.
Poor guy.
But it was good to see Daniel Jones at least use his legs and just show that he was comfortable enough doing that.
And by the way, I will say this even about that play. It's also good to see him not try to force the ball there because nothing is remotely open. And I have seen quarterbacks from that in that situation just throw it up there, hoping for the best. I mean, we even kind of saw that with Tyrod Taylor 2 weeks ago when he came in for Daniel Jones. And those are the types of plays that could lead to interceptions. And this drive doesn't happen. So it was not only just a good decision to run, it was a good decision not to force the throw, which I guess is the same thing. But either way, I want to give him some credit for that.
I feel like Jones has done that most of the season. I mean, we talk about like the Frankie Louvu pass.
Yep.
Obviously the interception against Tennessee, but other than those plays, he's been really
and the
Louvu
pass, I don't even think is really an example of him not doing. I think the Louvu pass is just something he's had an issue with his whole career, not reading that defender who's in that area of coverage. So I mean, that's just something that he just didn't see. So it's a little different.
This is one of my favorite plays of the game. So everyone watching on YouTube, and for those who aren't, the left tackle to the field side. This is an unbalanced set, but the left tackle to the field side, where it's the weak side of the formation, is Daniel Bellinger with Ben Bredesen. And then both tackles are to the boundary side with Evan Neal as the offensive tackle and Andrew Thomas as the big personnel tight end.
Back up 1 second, Nick. Explain to everybody what you mean by unbalanced set. By the way, this is on the Wildcat 40-yard 2nd and 7 run by Saquon Barkley. I want to preface it with that, but then explain what you mean by an unbalanced set.
Unbalanced set just means you align multiple tight ends, if you want to call them that, quote unquote, to one side. So you have like 3-4 blockers. Unbalanced, you really would be like 4 blockers on one side and then 2 on the other. But a real like true unbalanced set is what the Giants are doing right here, where you take both of your offensive tackles and you align them in big personnel to one side of the field while having someone else be the traditional offensive tackle to the other side, and that someone else is Daniel Bellinger. And the Giants run to this side, Dan. This is a wild. This is a wildcat.
They run to the side that doesn't have Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal.
It's a wildcat weak side pin pull concept right here. And if you look at the Packers front, and you've watched a good amount of film here, Dan, you have a nose tackle over John Feliciano, and then the next closest guy to the weak side where Daniel Bellinger is an edge rusher who is off of Daniel Bellinger, but right in the position where David Sills can block down on him. Because the Packers are accounting for all those extra gaps on the unbalanced side. So the Giants exploit this consistently. We saw it last week against the Chicago Bears, right? On the weak side run by Saquon Barkley. And we see it right here, only this time it's a wildcat. And you're going to see John Feliciano pull and locate. You're going to see Daniel Bellinger pull. You're going to see David Sills and Ben Bredesen block down. 68 blocks down. David Sills blocks down. David Sills throws 3 blocks. Matt Breida is the lead blocker, and he transitions so well from when David Sills blocks Darnell Savage on his second block. Lead block. So well, Dan. So well. So this is
Bellinger out there. He's doing a great job. Look at him out there.
He does a great job kicking out
that guy. That guy can make the play a lot of the time, that defensive back.
And he's just flowing outside. He's the secondary contained defender right here. Like, this is an excellent play. And the David Sills blocks, like, I love this right here. Like, David Sills, watch him make contact on Devondre Campbell. Hands right on the chest. He sees Darnell Savage scraping over the top. So he gets in the way of Darnell Savage. And then he transitions back and just kind of hits Devondre Campbell right there as Matt Breida
in his way.
That is an elite play from David Sills. This is elite blocking, team blocking. You're getting it from a tight end.
Looking at 13 there. And we didn't even mention 64, Glowinski, who does a great job on this as well.
I was just about to, but to the front side of the play, you're getting elite blocking from your wide receiver, a key lead block from your backup running back who is not a fullback in Matt Breida, And then you're having your center pull and take out Rashawn Gary with Daniel Bellinger locating Jair Alexander. Like, this is just an amazing play. This is something that you script up and you put it in the football museum, with Mark Lewinsky also picking up Quay Walker right there. I absolutely love
the
this
Giants
play.
have running backs blocking and executing blocks on key run plays. It's unbelievable. Like, Matt Breida is a running back. It's just crazy to see.
Absolutely. And also, man, like, you can see right here, the defense changes right before the snap, which is going to mess with the assignments of the blockers, and they're still able to adjust. Like, John Feliciano is pulling, but John Feliciano does a great job realizing that 52 is right there and nobody's blocking, because no one was blocking down on him because Daniel Bellinger kicked out into space. So John Feliciano adjusts and he takes him, which allows Matt Breida to be that lead blocker.
Honestly.
Yeah. It saves the play. And then Matt Breida adjusts and he's like, okay, I'm going to be the lead blocker here. I'm going to take out 26. It's just such a well orchestrated play where the players executed their assignments on the go, on the move. I absolutely loved it.
Such an incredible play. And then they come right back out of it and they hit a big play. And one thing I love about teams that do this after big runs or after big passing plays, don't just run the ball up the middle. Don't just panic because the play clock's running down. They run play action here. And look at this pocket that Daniel Jones has to throw from. This is a pristine pocket. Yes, I understand. They have a lot of guys blocking. That's part of what they've been doing. They have, running backs in there to potentially help if they need. They have an extra blocker to chip. But even so, you can see here Jones has so much functional space to work with. He does this thing he did a couple weeks ago where he kind of creates extra space to hitch into the throw. That I don't love. I don't necessarily understand why he does. I think he's just looking for a cleaner throwing window. I don't necessarily think he needs. So I think he can just plant and throw from that original spot. But either way, the ball comes out plenty. The timing is fine even with that. And the ball comes out really nice. I mean, this is a pretty good ball to that hash.
This ends up being a 10-yard gain to Darius Slayton. And I also want those watching on YouTube, and I'll just say this, the two receivers on this play it's 12 personnel, and you have two tight ends to one side, with one being a wingback off the line of scrimmage, and the two wide receivers, Darius Slayton, who catches the football, and Marcus Johnson. And the speed that Marcus Johnson uses to run a deep over route, it's just so it's palpable. The amount of speed that you see that jumps off the screen relative to what we've been seeing.
For those watching, that's at the top of the screen.
The top of the screen, you can see, watch that safety stress to close on the hip. And it's not like he's creating ample separation, but you just see the speed. You see the acceleration. You see the stress that he's putting on the defense. And also, this route by Slayton is very nice. I know he kind of stumbles a little bit out of his he stumbles a little bit out of his break, but watch how he stems inside to really eat and get.
Yeah, he sells that real well inside. Yep.
He sells it really well, and then he stumbles, but he's able to recollect. And watch how tight that angle. That's a very tight angle that Darius Slayton needs to turn on. Like, those ankles are fully flexed right there, man. They're at the gym. They're fully flexed. And then he comes back down towards the sideline and giving Daniel Jones an opportunity, kind of angling back towards the quarterback a little bit while also moving laterally, giving Daniel Jones that opportunity to throw the football right there. And Eric Stokes does not have an opportunity to make a play on the football.
And then just show them one view from the end zone angle so we can appreciate how the offensive line looks on this. I mean, this is just looks really nice from a blocking standpoint here. There's just no pressure at all on Daniel Jones. And how many times have we been able to say that over the years? I get it. They have a lot of guys in, and there's only four guys rushing, but man, there's no one coming even close to getting penetration on Jones.
And good eyes by Jones to look at the two receivers essentially that are out in this route, and also know that Darius Slayton is going to be open here. 91 doesn't gain any depth.
Really good eyes. Good point by you. You can see it from this angle. He's holding, looking at Marcus Johnson there, and he gets it out there. And that keeps that dropping linebacker from getting it the right depth and cutting off that route.
And that's Preston Smith right there. But another reason why he's staying a little bit tight to the line of scrimmage is Daniel Bellinger's an eligible receiver.
Oh,
And Tanner Hudson's an eligible receiver. You have to respect that because the Giants use so many chip and release type of plays. So that's just another little thing that the defense has to respect.
Yep. Really love to see that coming out. And look, they're expecting run, and they don't do that. All right, let's see this next play out of 1st and 10. I want to see from the other angle. I was curious to get your take on this. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure, but let's take a look from the other angle here.
So Jones gets sacked on this play. I love this play call too, by the way.
I was going to ask you about. I thought there was an opportunity to rip the ball. It would have to be with anticipation, but I thought there's an opportunity to rip the ball to Marcus Johnson potentially. What are your thoughts on that?
That's not the play. The play right here that and Marcus Johnson is open, and I thought the same thing, but the play right here is to Richie James. That's the play design right here. Because what happens is the Giants run essentially the number 2 receiver to the field side is kind of running like a tight end leak type of play. And those tight end leak plays that Tampa Bay Buccaneers used to run all the time with OJ Howard, that they would hit to like the backside. And OJ Howard would have like one catch for like 70 yards and a touchdown in some of those games, if you remember that. But what the Giants do is they take to the boundary side Darius Slayton, who is a reduced set inside the numbers. And he just basically angles inside to clear Eric Stokes out. And then you take Marcus Johnson, and he just runs like a deep out route. And he does have leverage. You are correct. Absolutely. But Richie James is the desired receiver here. You're basically taking him. He's right off the line of scrimmage, right next to Marcus Johnson to the field side. And he's just going to release on a drag and up like the tight end leak, like the wheel route. So he's basically just dragging across the formation, and then he's going up the numbers. And I feel like the Packers covered that really well, but this was a play designed to go to Richie James. And I think
there is some space too to this if he throws that near the, if he uses the sideline.
Yeah, if he uses the sideline, he definitely does. And I also like how the Giants release
toward there. I didn't even see that route on the first. I was so focused on the Marcus Johnson route.
Yeah, this is where the play design was supposed to go, in my opinion. And I also love how Saquon Barkley just kind of helps with blocking off of a play action, and then he just releases into the flat to occupy the underneath defender. And kudos to the Packers and whoever that defender is for covering this on Richie James. But this could have easily went for 6, and I think we're going to file this away, and we'll see this again soon enough, because
that's a cool little route. That's a cool little route design, but for James there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is something that you can see Wan'Dale Robinson running, Darius Toney running. So I really like this. And you can also see how Richie James, he tempos his release right here.
Yes.
He's not firing off the line. Look, he's acting like he's blocking, and then he accelerates. He accelerates.
He's selling the drag.
He's selling it. He's selling a drag, but he's not exploding, right? You see how he's kind of like, he kind of like tempers his release a little bit to get all these linebackers to look in other directions right here. And then he goes.
Yes.
Because the play action element.
They do. I mean, look at those linebackers as he tempers that release. Look at where they get. They're not with him after he explodes out. So, yeah, if they were going to make that throw, Jones would have had to hit his back foot and plant there because there's enough pressure that kind of derails this play. And he would have had to certainly lead him into space toward the sideline. But then we take a little quick hitter out here. Giants tried to hit a couple of these quick hitters. This looks like an alert play. It is. They haven't been able to really get as much yardage. None of these they've really been able to spring, it feels like, but that could change when they start throwing those out to like Wan'Dale Robinson and Toney.
Absolutely. And these are also plays where you just take what the defense is giving you. This is the quick bubble. It's basically like a quick bubble. It's not a screen to Richie James, but if you look at the pre-snap leverage of the Green Bay Packers, the guy over Richie James, closest to Richie James, is what? 10 yards away from him. Like, they're playing so soft on the New York Giants right here. So Daniel Jones off the RPO just calls alert, and you can see there's run blocking up front and throws the bubble to Richie James, and they pick up a few yards here. You just take what the defense is giving you at this point.
Yeah, I think they actually only picked up 1 yard. They only spotted them for picking up 1 yard because they went from 2nd and 14 to 3rd and 13. And that's when they have this big time conversion that keeps this drive alive to Richie James. And you know, we can credit the Giants, and we certainly should. It's an amazing pocket, even though it is 7-man protection or 6-man protection against 4. And it's a great throw by Jones. It's on the money. It's got great ball placement, got great velocity. The timing's great. It's an okay route by Richie James. But I got to be honest, I think this is just bad defense by the Packers. When I watch this play over and over, I'm just like, how the hell are you dropping that many guys in coverage and there's only 3-man route combination and you're leaving that area of the field vacated for, pretty much an easy pitch and catch it ends up being for Daniel Jones and Richie James.
Yeah, I would say the Packers definitely could have played better defense here, but I also think there are little subtleties in this play that Daniel Jones and the Giants exploited. Because it looks like the Packers are in some sort of quarters type of coverage. You have 4 guys dropping deep, as you could see, and you also have the safeties reading the release of the number 2 receiver. So he's reading the release of Richie James, and he's going to take him. I think the presence of Daniel Bellinger is kind of low key big here. You see how he chips and then he releases, and Devondre Campbell kind of flows laterally with him right there, which opens up a throwing window. And if we switch to the end zone angle now, I think one of the key parts of this play is Daniel Jones holding that boundary side safety with his eyes. Right when Daniel Jones catches the snap, he looks at the boundary side safety, and 31, that's Adrian Amos, he kind of sinks a little bit. And then Daniel Jones just kind of subtly glances to the other side and then just delivers the football.
I feel like, right away.
I feel like this little look right there, and you can see how he kind of looks back a little bit. Like, I feel like he's using his periffs right there to see what the safety is doing, and then he looks back. It's very hard to see, but you could see Daniel Jones. You can see the stripe on his helmet go back towards Adrian Amos. Yep. I think that held Adrian Amos in place and allowed Richie James to go into this window 100%. Right here.
That 100% held the safety right there. That was a great play by Jones.
Yeah, it was a really good play by Jones, right? And then Richie James points like that. Don't get the penalty, man. Just don't get the penalty.
Yeah, we don't need any stupid. Giants haven't had any. We haven't had any stupid penalties. So we did have the Kayvon Thibodeau one. I forgot about that. It was their only one. Those kill me.
Yeah, but that was just like he shouldn't have led with his face mask on the play, obviously, but it's like in the throw of things. I hate the penalties, like the Aaron Robinson penalty against New England in preseason, where he's standing over the like stuff like that.
We don't need. We haven't had any of those. So just ultimately a great conversion. Looking back on it, I really feel like that was an excellent play by Jones to hold the safety and rip that ball in there. So great conversion. This is are we on to the 2nd and 9 here? This one was it?
Yeah, this is the 2nd and 9 screen to Daniel Bellinger.
A huge gainer. Look at it from the sideline view,
which says a lot too, Dan. And I tweeted this
play call.
Yeah, I tweeted this. How many plays are the Giants scripting for their rookie tight end in the red zone? It's kind of crazy, man. It says a lot about the trust that they have in Daniel Bellinger. But I like this play call because you have a 3-by-1 set with the 1 being the nub, and that's where the tight end is. The tight end in line. He's attached to the formation. He's going to be the primary receiver on this tight end screen. But you take Saquon Barkley and you expand him towards Daniel Bellinger's side, which is the boundary side. So at the snap, Saquon Barkley is outside of the numbers, and that's going to remove the middle linebacker from that side of the field. If Daniel Jones was able to complete this pass, which he wasn't, it was batted by Devondre Campbell at the line of scrimmage. But if he was able to complete this pass, you don't have a lot of guys for the Green Bay Packers to make this play. You have 3 blockers in space, and I feel like Daniel Bellinger might get into the end zone here, or at least he gets to like within the 3-yard line.
Yeah, I think there's a potential touchdown if he gets the ball out to him and it's not tipped, because he's going to have Andrew Thomas in front of him and Feliciano. And at that point, there's a safety who could potentially crash down and help. But they're going to take away that one defender you can see in the screen. And it's pretty much just going to be if Feliciano can locate that safety and take him out of the play. But I just love the play call here where they have the empty, they have the fast go, and they have Barkley moving in motion, going to the left, takes out the linebacker. They looks right, and then he comes back to the left. It's just so well designed. There's so much eye candy going on this one. It's really tough for the defense. And one thing I would say about this play is keep an eye on what happens when Saquon Barkley goes into motion to the left. What happens to number 7 on this if you're watching along, but the linebacker on the inside, because the Giants are going to notice that too, where he goes, and they're going to take advantage of that on the very next drive. And that's part of what makes Mike Kafka so special right now and Brian Daboll. I don't know who's in charge of that. It might be something even Daboll sees. It's hard to know, but it's just constant where they're seeing things the defense is doing and adjusting to it on the fly.
Absolutely. Sets up the quarterback draw for later, like you said, man. And then that sets up this 3rd and 9 slant to Darius. At this point, Dan, I'm like, okay, we'll get a field goal. It sucks.
Yeah.
I was like, are they really going to convert a 3rd and long again on this drive? But man, dude, I'll tell you, I got eggs on my face for thinking that. What's that?
I said, especially in the condensed area in the red zone, it's really even harder once you get to like this 15-yard line that they're at.
And we talk a lot about spacing and how routes kind of feed off of each other. And I feel like that's exactly what happens here. The Giants line in a 2-by-2 set with Saquon Barkley in the shotgun to the boundary side of Daniel Jones. But if you watch the spacing and where these wide receivers are aligned, it's not just like a 2-by-2 set. Everything is symmetrical. You have Tanner Hudson, who is aligned on the hash. And then you have Darius Slayton, who is about 5 yards outside of the numbers. And that's really important here. And the Packers come out and they have Eric Stokes just basically in a press alignment on Darius Slayton, but the next closest defender is just outside of the hash, about 7 yards off of where Tanner Hudson is. And what Mike Kafka designs here, he has Tanner Hudson release off the line of scrimmage and basically run directly at that defender. And what ends up happening is 3 defenders are occupied with Tanner Hudson, which allows Darius Slayton the space to win inside on this slant. And this is the 3rd and 9 conversion to Darius Slayton. But the reason why he's open here, all he has to do is beat Eric Stokes, is because of Tanner Hudson's route, because that occupies Quay Walker and that occupies that apex defender and that occupies the safety. Little things like this mean a lot in football. And we did not see any of this stuff last year, but it goes a long way. And it went for a first down here, and also great finish by Slayton.
It's an incredible finish by Slayton for a lot of reasons. One, the pass is thrown short of the stick. So if he just catches it even and gets hit to the ground, there's no first down. He catches it, stays balanced, stays on his feet, and then rolls forward for the first down. Picks up an extra 2 or 3 yards there. 2, we always knock Slayton, let's say, or not we. Some people always knock Slayton for, oh my God, he has all these drops. Think of how difficult this catch is. He knows he's being led into a hit right there from the defensive backer, from this linebacker, number 7 there. And he knows that he's going to have to take that hit through the catch point, and he's going to have to hold on to the football. He does all of that despite getting hit right on where his right shoulder, where he has the football in his hand, and then stays on his feet, stays balanced, and rolls forward and turns it into a first down. So it's an incredible individual play from Darius Slayton. I love the little nuances you pointed out to be able to get him that opportunity for the space. But after that, he has to make the catch with a guy bearing down on him, sandwich between two defenders, catch through the hit, and then also spin forward for the first down.
Absolutely. And also let's pay attention to Daniel Jones's eyes here. Daniel Jones catches a snap and he slowly turns to get to Darius Slayton. His eyes go right to Darnell Savage and he's looking at Savage right there. He's looking at Savage until he hits the back foot. And that's when he flips his shoulders and his feet to Darius Slayton. These little things that Daniel Jones are doing on these more pure pocket type of passes, they're very underrated. There's something that I personally did not realize until I started diving into the all 22. So I really wanted to applaud Jones for that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it because there's been multiple examples now of him doing a great job holding the safeties or holding the linebacker, like you said in that case, with his eyes. And that's what we want to see. I love any of those plays on film where you see the quarterback looking in one direction the whole time, snapping back to the other side and ripping the ball and being right about that decision to snap back. Because when you do that, it makes you really hard to defend as a quarterback because the defense is watching your eyes. That's how they do it. And if your eyes are going in the direction where the ball is not eventually going to go and you're able to snap back, rip that ball with accuracy, timing, velocity, and again, make it be the right decision because you could flip your shoulders back and rip the ball and it could be an interception if you don't have the right read. But obviously he's doing a really good job of that. And so that was a great point by you.
And he's holding defenders in spaces that are going to optimize his wide receivers and allow them to make an easier catches to not get them killed over the middle of the field. And there was one play, I think it was own read to Breida. So this sets up the second down, double reverse touchdown pass option to Daniel Bellinger. Again, Daniel Bellinger again. You have Saquon Barkley, like they're lucky the Giants Dean Lowry did not make a play right here because I feel like if Jason Garrett tried to design this play, this is getting blown
this is
up.
A fumble. This is a guaranteed fumble if Jason Garrett designs this play. I've already said, I think we had this happen once and he fumbled.
Oh, there was a couple different times. I remember against the Denver Broncos, Von Miller blew up a play. It wasn't like this, but it was a similar play where you're just trying to run past an unblocked end man on the line of scrimmage, and Von Miller was like, nah, son, like that's not going to happen. But you can see right here, this is a double reverse. Daniel Bellinger gets this, and Tanner Hudson is open for a brief second, and Daniel Jones is also running a route in the end zone. And Daniel Bellinger said after the game that he was thinking about throwing the football here. Like you could see right here.
He also has Sills, or Jones. Sills. He really could go either way with that.
I'm telling you, man, like we give Sills a lot of crap, and rightfully so. He's not the type of wide receiver that you traditionally think of in terms of the fact that he can create all this separation and make these highlight type of plays. But man, he's similar to Daniel Jones in the fact that he's just incredibly tough, man. He's just an incredibly tough player. Like right here, he doesn't try to like run and get like the present himself as a receiver to get a touchdown and get all the glory. He goes and he takes on a 255-pound linebacker and leads block. And throws a lead block for Daniel Bellinger and then watch him celebrate. That says something right there, man. Like this guy throws a lot of these tough little gritty type of plays like that.
Yeah. And I don't know why I said Sills earlier. I meant Tanner Hudson was the other option for the pass here. I mean, he has an option here, Bellinger on this comeback here to throw to Hudson right there, try to go the wide throw to Jones, which is going to be a more difficult throw for a tight end to get, or to do what he did, which I think was better, show his lateral agility. Because this is good, really good lateral change of direction here from Daniel Bellinger. And that's something, he had that huge RAS score, which some people question. But look at him stop, cut back inside, and get there. He does a really good job here, in my opinion, as a bigger guy, just changing direction and stopping his momentum, which is obviously on a full reverse going to the right. He already has to evade that first tackle. Flashes that ability to, again, just ground himself, get forward laterally, and then get the touch. And ultimately, I think that was the right decision. But I do love the fact that there are options for him there. He can throw the football if there's nowhere to run with it, which is just an amazing thing to bake into a play call.
I also love the fact that earlier in this game, they scored a trick touchdown to Mercedes Lewis, the Green Bay Packers did. So now the Giants are like, oh, really? Okay, you guys want to run a little trick play? Well, we got a little trick play up our sleeves, and ours is a rookie. Ours isn't 37 freaking years old like Mercedes Lewis or whatever the hell he is. So I appreciated the little pettiness there, even though I know that wasn't the reason why they called this. This was just another well-designed play by Mike Kafka and Brian Dable.
Yep. So now 17-10 Packers at this point after the Giants strike back with a touchdown. They get the ball back and they go on an 11-play, 56-yard drive that gets stopped up and ends in a field goal. At that point, it was actually 20-10 Packers. So it was really important for them to get some points on the board. This was at the start of the third quarter. There's still a chance for the Giants to be kind of knocked out of this game if they didn't score points. And so they get on here with an 11-play, 56-yard drive with a field goal. It starts off here with a sack that was actually negated by a defensive holding.
We're not going to show that play though. We'll just but it was a sack negated by a defensive holding, and then it went right back to 1st and 10. And this is actually the trap block that I was talking about. This ends up just being a 5-yard rush by Saquon Barkley, but we could see the trap element right here. If we watch 68 avoid the contact right there from number 90. Number 90 goes for the contact. 68 goes, nah, I'm climbing up to number 7. And then you just have Mark Lewinsky pull around and then just make contact with him. It's not the most powerful trap block. Sometimes you'll see like trap blocks. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, just absolutely ear holes. 90 seems like he anticipates it here. He gets his eyes on 64 and then anticipates it. But
yes, he does.
But Lewinsky does enough to at least allow Saquon Barkley to get a positive run here. You could see how 90 does a really good job at least getting himself back into position to make the play here on Saquon Barkley. But yes, this is the trap play that I was referring to before. I feel like the wham block that we're going to go over a little later was a little bit more effective though.
And you could see how close the Giants are to springing something on a play like this as you look through it. Like if that trap block is a little more powerful and he's not expecting it, and if Neal does a little bit of a better job, in my opinion, on his block and his assignment, there is a nice lane for Saquon Barkley to cut back and just rip uphill and get vertical. Because Andrew Thomas takes out number 7.
Exactly. And this is why you run a trap type of block. Because watch Ben Bredesen and watch Andrew Thomas. They both just basically run around number 90 like it's a fork in the road type of situation. 68. Look right there. As Saquon Barkley's hitting the hole, you have Andrew Thomas eliminating Quay Walker, and then 68 is positioning himself between Devondre Campbell and the rushing path of Saquon Barkley. Evan Neal's getting pushed back by Dean Lowry a little bit. You don't love to see that, but you can see why the Giants would run a play like this. This is also a play that the Eagles run a lot. They ran so much trap against the Giants last season, and a lot of it was successful. That's why they ran for like 200 and something yards. But yeah, I think again, we'll see a little bit more of this, and hopefully it will spring a huge run. I think they're set up to be a very successful run.
Yeah, that one looks real close to me. Here they go, like you said, they run the wham here.
Now this isn't a wham block. Okay. This is just a split zone. This is just a simple split zone
with Bellinger coming back across. It's like the sniffer.
Yeah. You just go. That's the play that Kayvon Thibodeau got hurt by Thad Moss in the preseason.
Yep. Now I'm thinking on this play. Obviously, Bellinger doesn't execute this maybe as well as you're hoping he would, because you're hoping, even though it sounds bad because you don't want these guys to get hurt, but you're hoping he kind of chips him out of the play and takes him out. But I was kind of curious why, and maybe that's part of the reason why. But I feel like Saquon Barkley, if he plants and hits that cutback lane, he could really potentially take this one.
Yeah, that seems like it was probably the best option right there. It looks like he sees Andrew Thomas and Ben Bredesen. Andrew Thomas has great leverage on Dean Lowry here. Yep. And Ben Bredesen is climbing up to Quay Walker, and then you have David Sills against one of these two. So I think that's what was going through Saquon Barkley's mind. But John Feliciano kind of loses to the outside there a little bit, and then Andrew Thomas gets stacked up a little bit here. Dean Lowry, I feel like, does a really good job keeping Andrew Thomas off of him and then just anchoring down and then making this tackle. Just a very, very good play by 94 for the Green Bay Packers. And then Saquon Barkley just never quits. He ends up picking up a few extra yards here. I think it only ended up going for like a 2-yard gain, but it could have been even worse than that. But it set up this 3rd and 3 play. And this is, Dan, so there's 2 plays on this drive that when I was watching and I saw the formation, I was like, I know what play they're going to run. And this is the first time it's happened this season. So it took me to week 5. I was like, this is going to be the mesh wheel. And I texted you and I was like, and then a little bit later in the drive, they run a quarterback draw. And that one was really obvious because it was the fast 3 or whatever it was. And I was like, oh man, they're running quarterback draw here. And the Packers are not going to anticipate it. And exactly, we were right. But if we watch this right here, look, Darius Slayton, when he motions back towards this bunch right here, towards this stack to create a bunch, the Giants run mesh. They've done this. This is one of the main passing plays that they run. They love to run it against man coverage. This is more of a zone look. They have the mesh with Darius Slayton being the mush, Marcus Johnson being the mosh, and then the OTB from Richie James with a 7 route or an out route or a streak. They run it a little bit different with the tight end there, and then Saquon Barkley running the wheel. And this is a great play by Darius Slayton, man. Jair Alexander anticipates this. This is a really good play by Jair Alexander to almost break this up. But Darius Slayton, man, you want to talk about just a tough play. That throw is behind him, and he makes the catch, and he runs through the contact, and he picks up extra yards to convert on a 3rd and 3. That's one of those low-key plays in the game that could have been one of the main reasons why the Giants end up winning here.
And Slayton does a really good job after the catch here to kind of break free from that like arm tack, whatever you want to call it, when he's grabbing on the jersey and create, an extra 5, 6, 7 yards after contact.
Ben Bredesen, this is ugly with Ben Bredesen, man.
Oh, yeah. Real ugly. It was not a good game for Ben Bredesen at all. Look at how quickly Bredesen gets beat on this one. Woof.
That's
if you're watching along on the YouTube.
That's 2020 Shane Lemieux type stuff. Like Bredesen goes to punch. Bredesen goes to punch with his outside hand, and 90 just kind of like uses a SWAT arm over. It doesn't even look all that efficient, but it's just effective because the pure power of number 90 to like lift Bredesen off the ground and just throw him inside. It was a really bad rep by Ben Bredesen, but the Giants
not a good rep from Evan Neal either. If you back that up,
yeah, we'll watch the Evan Neal rep. Evan Neal gets kind of pushed back against Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary hits him with an inside long arm and then lifts him up a little bit. Yep. To Evan Neal's credit, he's able to clamp down, get both hands back inside, and then kind of just push him and flatten his path so he doesn't really get into the pocket. But either way, the pressure was there from Rashawn Gary.
Yeah, that's not quick game. The pressure's getting there. Yep. So not a great rep from those two, obviously, but it worked because they were able to run a good route concept. They got open, and Jones threw it on time, and Slayton made a good play there.
Also love the motion. They motioned Darius Slayton on that play from the one side all the way out wide outside the numbers, and then back to the stack, like we said. And that set up this 1st and 10 play action Yankee concept that ends up going for 13 yards to Darius Slayton.
This was excellent.
Another good play right here. Yankee concept, something that's very commonly run against Wink Martindale's defense because it works really well against middle of the field closed type of looks. And right here, you just have Marcus Johnson. Again, you could see his speed right here. He's the speed element. He's the one who's supposed to stretch the field. He's the clear out, exactly, to open up this area of the field for those watching on YouTube.
That with Sills. Can't run that with Golladay.
Exactly. So, yeah, Marcus Johnson just accelerate, and that clears Jair Alexander out, and you can see number 31, Adrian Amos, pay attention to him as well. Pay attention to Marcus Johnson, that is. So now you have Darius Slayton against that initial field side safety, but Darius Slayton's running into space. That safety cannot get to that hip in time. Devondre Campbell is also the underneath defender. He's occupied by Saquon Barkley off of the play action, just kind of going to the flat. So all of these routes, man, all the route concepts within this offense, they work off of each other to optimize the best play depending on whatever the defense does.
And back it up a little because Yankee is one of my favorite route concepts. And like you mentioned, people use
two-man route concept, by the way, too.
Two-man route concept, which is we saw a lot of in this game. And so you said, it beats Wink Martindale's defense a lot when he goes middle of the field closed. That's the same thing as, when we talk about Wink Martindale running a lot of cover one with one high safety. So explain what the Yankee concept is to anyone who might not know.
Yeah, so I didn't say it beats it. I said it beats cover one type of defense or middle of the field close. That's typically ran to take advantage of middle of the field close type single high safety defenses. But basically it's a deep over route and then a clear out. It's either a really, really deep post route because you want to really occupy that safety, or a vertical. Essentially, it's just a clear out with a deep over route, and it's two-man route concept. Whatever that safety reacts to, you can connect, essentially, depending on how the other defenders cover it, you can connect with the other route concept.
And I like it so much because it puts that safety in conflict.
Yes. Ideally, you want the safety or you want one of these defenders to drive down on Darius Slayton. You want this safety to be paying attention to Darius Slayton, drive down, and then you have Marcus Johnson running a deep post with a defender who has outside leverage. Now, the safety doesn't typically make that mistake, but it's happened plenty of times throughout the NFL. But that's what you want to happen. But if that doesn't happen, you still have a play as such where exactly.
Darius Slayton. It's a great freaking route concept. I love when teams run it. I'm happy the Giants are running it. In general, I'm happy the Giants are running a lot more concepts that involve clear out routes because I always felt like that was missing from the last offense that they were running. And just good to see because it helps them in a lot of ways. Yeah.
And then we have these two plays that I think are identical other than the motion.
Yep.
It's just like split zone type plays right here with Daniel Bellinger coming across the formation. That sets up this 3rd and 4. And this is where Barkley is going to motion out. And you can see Devondre Campbell right here. He goes with Saquon Barkley, right? So the Giants are going to go
last drive, and we knew that was coming.
Yep. Quarterback draw. Just use
easy 3rd and 4 connection here for the Giants. Just take free yards. Great pickup here by Mike Kafka. He saw in the last drive that if he puts Barkley in motion, the linebacker is going to leave that box. Clear zone for Jones. Now, he did try to run draw twice more in this game, and it didn't work. The Packers adjusted well to what the Giants did, but here was the first one, and it was a nice freebie.
And it's a clutch 3rd and 4 conversion by Daniel Jones, who is hobbled to set up a 1st and 10 RPO that ends up just going for a handoff right here, and it gets bottled up. You have a flat 7 route right here. This is the play that the Giants have run basically every week, I think, since week 2. Only this time Daniel Jones handed the football off. So if this defender right here, for those watching on YouTube, the M-man on the line of scrimmage, he stays disciplined here, and he doesn't allow Daniel Jones to go into the pass or the run option part of this for himself. So what does that allow Daniel Jones to do? He's like, okay, that backside pursuit defender is not crashing down the line of scrimmage. I can hand the football off to Saquon Barkley. But if Rashawn Gary crashed down the line of scrimmage, Daniel Jones is keeping this football running laterally down the line of scrimmage with David Sills running the corner. And I think that's Tanner Hudson in the flat. So we've seen that play, and we broke that play down several times. The Giants get like 9 yards off that play. The Giants had success against the Cowboys with that play. They had success against Carolina with that play, Chicago. So this time they ended up handing the football off, but it's still something that Mike Kafka is going to provide Daniel Jones plenty of options within one play to move the football.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you broke that down because it's such a nice little thing. I thought this was a really good play call here. It was pretty simple, but a great job to get the ball out there, and really good job by Sills post catch. You don't see Sills make too many plays after the catch. Here he does.
Yeah, and man, he just walks the tightrope tight right here up the sideline. Essentially what happens is, to the field side, the Giants run a 2-man route concept with Tanner Hudson, who is the outside receiver on the numbers. He is going to release into Eric Stokes, and he's just basically setting a pick for David Sills to release vertical initially and then work underneath the release of Tanner Hudson, because the Packers, like they've been doing all game, they have off leverage on the number 2 receiver. It's something they did all game. And the Giants, similar to what the Packers did against Wink Martindale's defense a lot, just took what the defense was giving them. And that's exactly what happened here. Just take what the defense is giving you.
Every time I see, man, this goes back to my old school days of following the Giants before I did any of this film stuff, man, when I was watching the old, like, Perry Fuel. No, it wasn't even Perry Fuel, the Tim Lewis defenses. Do you remember Tim Lewis, the Giants defensive coordinator?
I do, yeah.
I've just never been a fan of teams who use a lot of off coverage. I don't really see the point of it. I don't understand it at all. I know in an ideal world it can work. Obviously, there's a reason these defensive coordinators are using it, but I felt like it was a big factor for what the Giants were able to. The Giants took advantage of the Packers playing so much off coverage in this game.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of defenses, and Daniel Jones takes a shot here, but a lot of defenses align when they're not quite in the red zone, but if they're on their side of the field within the 40-yard line to the red zone, they align in off coverage a lot. They don't want to get beat at the line of scrimmage, resulting into like a 35-yard touchdown pass. So they'll play top down and they'll surrender 2, 3, 4 yards here to try to set up what would be a third and manageable, force a field goal attempt rather than allowing an explosive.
But let me ask you this: in this specific matchup, when you're facing a Giants team that hasn't really beaten anybody over the top of the passing game, does it even make sense to kind of be so worried about that?
I'm not really 100% sure. I mean,
yeah,
not as much, I guess, just because you don't have receivers who are lightning quick with their release package. You're not going up against Justin Jefferson. Right. You're not going up against Devontae Adams.
You could recover against these receivers for the most part.
For the most part, yeah. But regardless, it seems like the Packers stayed pretty true to this style of defense. They were doing it at the top of the screen as well. As you could see, they're all about 6 yards off.
It's crazy. And you know what? You've seen a lot this week. I've been just reading some of the blurbs and some of the blogs. There's a lot of people who are calling for, I think it's Joe Barry is his name, right? Or
Joe Barry, yeah.
Joe Barry. Like, there are a lot of people calling for his head right now. And there's a lot of negativity surrounding him as defensive coordinator. I mean, this Packers defense is way too much talent to put together what they put on film, at least against the Giants. I haven't watched them yet this season. We obviously know they got destroyed by the Vikings in week 1 and by their passing game. But, man, they have so much talent on the defense side of the ball. It's wild to me.
Yeah, no, that's something that Dusty, I'm not sure if we said it on the podcast, but Dusty, who we had on here, he was mentioning how they align a lot in off coverage, the Green Bay Packers. So I'm glad that the Giants were just taking what they were giving. They weren't trying to force anything, just play smart football, take what's there, and then live to fight another day. But that set up this 3rd and 8 quarterback draw with who? The best lead blocker in the NFL, Matt Breida, throwing the block. But it ends up getting tackled because Evan Neal just loses to Rashawn Gary again. Rashawn Gary, man, just watch how he moves on this play. Rashawn Gary swims inside on Evan Neal here, and this is a weak side quarterback draw to Evan Neal's side, and is going right to the B gap. But Rashawn Gary just makes contact. His arms
change of direction.
The change of direction and the arm length. Rashawn Gary, I think he has like long arms, but it's not like Jason Pierre-Paul. It's not like the longest arms in the NFL, but they look substantially longer, do they not?
Yes, they do. And he uses them really well. And he was a player the Giants loved, by the way, during the pre-draft process. He was linked to the Giants a lot that draft. They didn't ultimately have the opportunity to draft him, but he's obviously now having a breakout season for them. Anyway, they settle for 3 here, the Giants, after that 3rd and 8 draw goes awry. And so now the Giants are at 20-13. We got ourselves a game. We're back in within 1 score, and despite at one point feeling like, they weren't going to be in this game. And then the Giants have that key play on defense, which we'll go over tomorrow, where Kayvon Thibodeau rushes up the arc. Rodgers kind of has to take a step forward, and Dexter Lawrence makes a great inside move to get the sack. So they, instead of getting a field goal, the Packers punt it all the way down to the 9-yard line. That's where they down it. So now the Giants take over from their own 9-yard line, 20-13, in a game where it could have been 23-13 if they don't sack them, get them out of field goal range. This is a key drive in the game. And on the very first play, Saquon Barkley gets injured and is out for the rest of the drive.
Which is insane to think about. Like, what would the odds be in Vegas? Dan,
yeah, of them now going for a touchdown, right?
If them going for a touchdown without Saquon Barkley. And I actually really like this play call right here. You have Saquon Barkley as the number 3, empty formation. He's off the line of scrimmage, close to Daniel Jones. They're basically both aligned on the hash. And you just run him down the line of scrimmage with 2 lead blockers, just stalk blocking. It's just Devondre Campbell does a really good job matching Saquon Barkley here. He covers the ground, and he ends up making this tackle, takes a really good angle. And unfortunately, Saquon Barkley ends up getting hurt. And when I saw him laying on the ground like he was right there, Dan, I was like, oh no, like this could get ugly real fast.
Yeah, we obviously can't afford that right now or at any point the way this team is built right now in offense. But yeah, they come right back to this play right after it to Matt Breida. This was an excellent play on a 2nd and 11. This was one of the key plays of the game, in my opinion, because if you're 3rd and long, backed up that far, in my opinion, they're not going to Joe Judge it. They're not going to do the victory formation. That's what I call the Joe Judge on 3rd and long from backed up. But they're probably going to run a pretty conservative play if they don't connect here for at least some yards. Instead, they pick up the entire first down here with this play call. Yeah,
and the play call is just a motion of David Sills, and then once David Sills passes the back of Daniel Jones, it's play action to Matt Breida, where Matt Breida basically doesn't even sell the play action. He runs directly into the flat. You just have Daniel Jones basically roll out with 2 receivers. Richie James comes from the backside, leaking into the flat with Matt Breida in the flat. Rashawn Gary, who is unblocked, sees Daniel Jones going to pass, and he goes to attempt to make the sack, but in doing so, nobody is in the flat because Eric Stokes was following the motioning David Sills. So that little motion of David Sills that you see right there, it seems innocuous to the play. Watch how Eric Stokes gets tight to the formation because he thinks it's going to be a run, and that provides the space for Matt Breida and Richie James right there. Like little things. Well, and then somebody else, Dan, just takes a tumble right here. Watch. You have the camera guy, the guy holding. Yeah. Poor guy. I don't know what that guy's there to do. I'm sure it has something to do with the sound to keep the wind out, but he's holding that like, he gets. Graham Gano is right there to pick him up, though. So
Gano is there to pick up the Giants doctor, too, when he got knocked down. Gano is the pickup guy because I saw him pick up when Jones ran out of bounds earlier and knocked him down. Gano is just there to pick you up. If you get knocked down and you're doing a job on the sideline, I always wonder what these kickers are doing for most of the game, right? Like, it's not like they don't need to meet with their coach and be like, did you see that on tape? Let's adjust to that, right? Like, what do they do most of the game? I don't know. So now we know. Now we found out what these kickers and specialists do. They're there to clean you up, pick you up if you get knocked down and you weren't supposed to be. So good job on Gano.
And he's damn good at doing it too.
Yeah, there you go. That's 2 for 2 for Gano. So thank you, Gano. You probably helped out this guy's day. Now we roll into this play here. I'm trying to catch up on my sheet here.
It's a play action pass that Daniel Jones picks up some yards with his feet. But the main thing here is a defensive hold on Richie James. And you're just going to see if you're watching on YouTube, Richie James gets dragged to the ground. And you just see flags flying everywhere, like Tom Brady got grazed or something like that. Like flags were raining on the football field. And it was an obvious defensive hold. So I'm glad it was called. Daniel Jones also, man, I feel like he does a really good job here, even though the
really good job navigating the pocket, right?
Yeah, because it's a play action pass, of course, because that's seemingly all the Giants run here. And he steps up into the pocket, and then he sees all the deep concepts and how all the Giants or all the Packers defenders were taken out. So he just picks up like 10 yards with his feet, maybe like 11 or 12 yards with his feet here, and outruns Devondre Campbell to the sideline. But the penalty is the main story here.
Let's flip it to the other view because I just want to show Jones on this because I thought this was one of Jones's best plays navigating the pocket. Not only does he do a good job stepping up through the initial pressure here, I thought he does a good job right here of kind of shuffling and looking. It looks quick when you watch it there, but when you see it from the other angle, he's looking downfield. He's giving it an opportunity to kind of make this throw. And he's like, you know what? Quickly decides I don't have anything there, which was the correct decision. There was nothing there to throw, and I can make a run. And he doesn't really. This was the first play where I was like, he doesn't look even hurt at all. Look at this run, man. He just gets.
He's fast, man.
Yeah, I mean, this is an injured Daniel Jones. Obviously not 100% healthy, but just a great job here, stepping up through the pressure, keeping his eyes downfield while doing it. That's the key here. Keeps his eyes downfield. Just in case if something was open. Now, again, if you looked at it from the first view, which we showed, nothing is open. But if something was open, he gave himself the opportunity to make that throw before deciding to run it for 13 yards. And so that I thought Jones did an excellent job on this play.
And he uses good timing too, Dan, right?
Really
Ben Bredesen's beat basically right at the snap. And Daniel Jones realizes that, steps up into the pocket, and then Andrew Thomas kind of loses a little bit inside to Jonathan Garvin right there. But luckily, John Feliciano does a very good job pulling Dean Lowry down. Like you could see it from the YouTube. John Feliciano basically reverse horse collars this guy. Like he gets his fingers right into where the shoulder pads and the neck meet, and he just pulls Dean Lowry to the ground and falls on top, almost like a snatch and trap. Only, it
could have been a hold. No,
it could have been a hold. Exactly.
Yeah. But Daniel, could have been a hold, but I guess we got away with the one there. It was kind of past the play. So
exactly. And good on Andrew Thomas to at least hold Garvin just long enough to allow Daniel Jones to evade and escape right here.
It was another ugly rap from Bredesen. It sucks because we had been building a decently, not a steady drum beat with Bredesen, but he had been playing pretty good the past couple games before the injury. Then he came back to play this game, and this was arguably his worst game of the season. So just not that steady, linear incline for Bredesen. It was like 2 good games back to back after some struggles to start, and now back to a really bad game. So difficult to see, not what you want. Maybe they ultimately make the switch to go to Azudu, but also this could open up the opportunity for them to switch back to Lemieux when he gets healthy as well. I feel like that left guard situation is far from settled right now.
I 100% agree, and I actually like that fact. Obviously, you want the continuity, but you also want the best player out there, and you want these guys to consistently fight for it. Not that they would get lazy and not fight for it, but I like the fact that they have 3 options that don't make you sick. I think that's a solid place to be in. And right here, John Feliciano loses bad, but I love how Matt Breida gets gobbled up here, but somehow he shrugs this 315-pound dude off of him. I don't know how Matt Breida, who's like 190 pounds soaking wet, or at least he looks like crazy, is able to do that. Now, he doesn't get anything. He actually loses a yard on this play. But for those who are listening, basically Matt Breida is wrapped up, and he just kind of like shimmies his body, and then big Slayton just falls off of him, number 93.
Now, on this play, there were actually multiple options for Daniel Jones. I like the one he chose, and this is just a simple, curl flat here, or slant flat. What is this here? This concept here on the left side.
Yeah, so the Giants are aligning in a 3-by-1 set with the wing back, and the 3 receiver side is to the boundary. So essentially, they're just going to run Matt Breida out to the flat, which is going to expand Quay Walker and create a throwing window for Marcus Johnson, who does just a very good job just running a little button hook, just a little curl against what, Dan? Off leverage. So all you have to do if you're Daniel Jones is wait for Quay Walker to pass through the throwing window to match Matt Breida, and then just deliver the football to a wide open Marcus Johnson, who even has the ability to turn around and face Adrian Amos, who is in off coverage.
Now I will say this, run it back.
Okay.
This is kind of one of those plays where I feel like, okay, Jones knows he has this curl flat against this kind of off leverage. So he knows he's going to have this easy solution. But if he's going full, like if you look at it, Richie James also has there's an opportunity. There's a window to throw the ball in here to Richie James here, number 80 up top. I'm using my mouse and it's not doing anything. So, but if you're watching on the play,
I don't think Richie James would have been open if he didn't throw the football to Marcus Johnson.
That's a good point too, as you watch the rotation. Yep.
Yeah, so both of those safeties come down once the football. This is just a quick, decisive decision by Daniel Jones to take advantage of.
And it's the right one, like you said. He throws it to the. He notices the leverage pre-snap, knows the concept there that he has, the 2-route concept, and he gets it in there. And what does it end up being? Result in what is it? 8-yard gain.
Yeah, that was a 2nd and 11, and now it's 3rd and 4, so 7-yard gain. And the Giants align in 2-by-2 set, double stack here on the 3rd and 4. And we can watch it right here. Daniel Bellinger just ends up getting open again. This is another horizontal spacing type of concept, but I think one of my favorite routes of the game, to be honest, and it's not because it's overly explosive, but it just created the window for Daniel Bellinger, is the pivot route run by David Sills, because the 2-by-2 set, The 2 receiver set at the top of the screen, the boundary side, is David Sills as the inside receiver with Daniel Bellinger as the outside receiver. So David Sills is going to run a pivot route where he fakes inside and then he pivots outside. And Daniel Bellinger is going to go around that release and then settle right into the middle of the field where there's this open void. And there's really no one for the Packers to cover Daniel Bellinger because Jair Alexander is playing so far off of him. Because the underneath defender is Devondre Campbell, as you could see. But Devondre Campbell is going to match what David Sills is doing. David Sills opens this window by running this route. This window is closed with Devondre Campbell in the position that he's in until David Sills starts flowing laterally. Yep. And once it starts flowing laterally, Devondre Campbell matches him, goes with him, and then Daniel Bellinger just sits and makes this catch to move the chains. Like little things like this, man, little subtleties, they go a long way. And also on the backside, Richie James runs just like a little button hook, just a little curl to occupy Quay Walker. And then you have a deep safety who is like far off of Daniel Bellinger. So the routes that are adjacent to Daniel Bellinger is the reason why Daniel Bellinger is open here.
And I'll say this, Nick, this is just my opinion of it. I think this is more on the design than the player. Like that whip route by Stills is like, I think you can have anyone running that route and still gonna occupy the linebacker pretty much. And to be quite honest, I think most Giants are gonna run this route better than Sills, to be completely honest. Like,
yeah, I'm not saying that Sills.
No, I know you're not saying
brilliant route. I'm saying it was a brilliant design to remove an underneath linebacker there. And also you have Matt Breida kind of running a wheel route right there just to
take away one more guy. Yeah. And look at the other view, the end zone angle. Watch Daniel Jones's eyes on this one. He does it's another good example of Daniel Jones using his eyes here.
So Daniel Jones catches the football here, and he looks first at Adrian Amos to see what Adrian Amos is doing, to see if Adrian Amos is going to go with Daniel Bellinger. But Adrian Amos handles Matt Breida, who's flaring out. So he expands. And you can see Daniel Jones looking at Adrian Amos, and then he shifts his vision to Devondre Campbell. For those watching on YouTube, and if you haven't seen this on YouTube, I implore you to go and look at it. It's going to be around the hour and 20-minute mark, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. But you could see Daniel Jones's eyes transition from Adrian Amos going through his progressions to Devondre Campbell. And that's when he knows Daniel Bellinger is going to be open, and he sets, he squares, and he fires just in time too. Because Evan Neal gets beat pretty bad by Preston Smith. I hate saying that, Dan, but we're saying it a lot recently.
Yeah, Evan Neal wasn't as good as we might have hoped here. That was one thing I guess we learned. You know, we always talk about the positive things we learned on film. That was probably the negative thing I would say I learned on film. Evan Neal, I thought, had a better game just watching the first time on broadcast than when you kind of look at it on film, which is okay. I mean, there's still growing pains for him. But I just love this. Is just such a textbook quarterback play by Jones. Like you said, first he looks off the safety and sees where he's going to be. Then he looks at the linebacker, sees where he's going to be. And then that allows him to kind of snap his head around, deliver that ball while the pass rusher's coming in on him. Like Evan Neal's dude, who is that, Rashawn Gary?
No, it's Preston Smith.
Oh, Preston Smith, another really good pass rusher, has an opportunity to make a hit here. He does get in on Jones, it looks like. So he has to get this ball off right before that. Great play by Jones here.
And Rashawn Gary against Andrew Thomas, that's if you want to watch an elite edge rusher against an elite tackle, you can see it. Andrew Thomas does a good, like he's wide with his hands here, and he kind of clamps and tongs a little bit.
I like that.
But he anchors that. I mean, that's not great technique to be so wide with your hands like right there. Like you're lucky you're not getting called, but Andrew Thomas is so good
for
with
a hold on that.
Yeah, but he's not grabbing the shoulder pads really. Like he's still able, even though he's wide, to kind of make. You can see making contact with the deltoid. You know what
that almost reminds me of? A Super Smash King K. You know when King K does the clap.
Yeah,
kind of what it looks like there. It looks like the King K rule clap down, just the.
Andrew Thomas is King K rule right here,
and he can certainly anchor like King K rule. Let me tell you that dude can anchor.
Oh, definitely. And look at this power. Look at this power move by Rashawn Gary right there. Ooh. He tries to shed Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas is just so strong. His grip strength is so strong, good, man. And he stays in front of him there. That's elite against elite.
I'm curious. Did you see on Twitter Brandon Thorne's evaluation of Andrew Thomas? I think it was from last week.
Not. Okay. No, I did not.
Okay,
what was it?
So his whole thing is he feels like Thomas, he's not ready to consider Thomas anywhere near the elite. And it's just kind of like Giants fans being homers is basically somewhat what he was saying, because he was saying one thing with Thomas, until he wants to be considered in that elite group, he needs to stop getting as much help. And he feels like he's still getting too much help to be considered in that elite group. And he also said like the run game stuff with Thomas really just started to come on this year. But even so, like that last part that he's talking about, I'm like, okay, well that I can accept. But like if it is there now, which it seems like it is, it seems to me like he's doing a lot better as a run blocker. Can he be considered in that lane? And as far as the help, what are your thoughts on any of that? I'm just curious.
In terms of the help, I just feel like the Giants do that on both sides. And
Yeah,
it's not even just a product of, hey, we need to help Andrew Thomas. It's more of a product of, hey, Andrew Thomas is to the field side and we want the tight end to chip and release to the field side.
Right.
And I think that's more of the reason why. It's more of a scheme thing rather than Andrew Thomas is a liability thing.
100%, because you see it throughout all the tape we watch the Giants and we talk about on this podcast. A lot of it is they chip and release in these routes. And sometimes that, like you said earlier on one of your plays you broke down, Nick, that keeps the linebacker in, or that keeps the second level defenders with their eyes on those players, and it doesn't allow them to maybe get as much depth, and then you could throw the route over the top. So it's also, like you said, it's a schematic thing that Kafka and Dable are obviously consciously doing.
Well, think about it too. What type of plays are the Giants running so much of right now? It's these bootlegs, it's these rollouts, and sometimes they're going to roll out to Andrew Thomas's side, and a lot of the times you want that chip and release guy to be right there for Andrew Thomas. So you're rolling away from Evan Neal. You're not going to give him the help in those specific plays.
Right.
So that's an interesting take. I really respect Brandon Thorne's opinion on the offensive line. I think he's one of the best to evaluate it, and I'm interested to see if he changes his tune. But I don't think it's actually, I know it's not because Andrew Thomas needs the help. That's not the reason, because you have a rookie tackle on the other side who, I hate to say it, but if we're just going to be about as objective as possible, he needs the help. He needs the help right now. And hopefully that will trend in the right direction.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that is just he's learning such a new way to play this position in a new way. And it is what it is. I mean, if you let him go back to what he was comfortable doing at Alabama, maybe that's good for the short term, but not good for the long term. And ultimately, the focus should be on what's the best for his long-term development. And that decision the coaches have to make at some point. Like, if he continues to struggle with what they're teaching, there may be a point that comes along where they're like, all right, Evan, I'm curious if you think this will happen, actually, Nick. Is there a point where that comes along where they're like, all right, we have to not teach him to do something different, but maybe adjust how they're coaching him?
I think so. Yeah. And I think that's coaching every single day. You're always you're not, like, especially with this coaching staff, I don't feel like they're rigid, right? I feel like they'll always adapt their coaching methods and styles to help their players reach, their maximum potential. So I think that's definitely something that can happen. And we know some of the issues with Evan Neal. It's the leaning, it's the balance. And these are issues that before he was even a New York Giant, we said he had. We're like, yeah, that can be exploited. And we even said at the beginning of the season, before we had any tape or any knowledge of what he was going to be in training camp, we're saying it could start a little rocky for Evan Neal. He's not going to hit the ground running. He's not that type of player. I just think he's going to eventually be a high floor NFL starter. I think that's who Evan Neal is. Somebody that you can look at and be like, I'm glad he's on our offensive line. He's not hurting us. But right now he's too young and too inexperienced to be that. And he's still coming into his own.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment. One thing I'm curious about, and we can move on after this, but one of the things we talked about in the offseason is like how Bobby Johnson teaches these offensive linemen to play. He wants them kind of almost like attack and dictate, like it's almost like a run play. And does that kind of also, in my head, I'm thinking that could also be part of the issue just for a player like Neal, because when you have the issue of getting off balance often, right, and being very top heavy, when you're trying to dictate an attack, that kind of you're moving your body forward in that direction. It's harder to stay balanced.
I mean, yeah, but he's also losing in like traditional pass.
He is losing, yeah, right.
And like, 45-degree sets where he's not necessarily dictating so much. He's losing in the run game when he's
the run game
just
as a whole,
run block. Right. So like, I don't know if it's necessarily just that. I think it's more to everything. It than that. Yeah. I think he's just struggling, and I think that's going to happen for a lot of rookie tackles, other than Charles Cross right now. It seems like
Lucas has been really good too.
Yeah, they're killing it up there in Seattle. And Geno Smith, man, I had to tweet about him. Some of the throws he's making, they're elite.
You rarely see Nick Filato ever tweet anything about any quarterback not named Daniel Jones. I've been following this dude's Twitter, your Twitter, Nick, for years. I don't see you ever doing anything on the college guys. I don't see you ever doing anything really on like a Mahomes or Herbert, which sometimes I'll do from time to time, or anyone will do, because it's kind of fun just to watch quarterbacks. And it's not because you don't like to or you don't enjoy it. You're just your Twitter is very straightforward. You're a blue collar guy. You wear your tie to work. You don't really get out of line ever on Twitter. You never really tweet about anything but the Giants, and then some occasional jokes you'll throw in there from time to time, or just like things you observe. But yeah, when you're tweeting about a quarterback, I take notice. And you tweeted the obvious one, that throw by Gene. I mean,
silly
Christ, that throw. Like, he's rolling to his left. He doesn't even get a chance to fully flip his hips around, and still delivers that ball over the defender in perfect stride along the sideline. Like, how the hell did he make that throw? The way Geno, and the two deep posts to Lockett, we don't need to talk about too much about Geno Smith, but it is kind of crazy because Ben McAdoo at one point broke Eli Manning's Iron Man start streak to start Geno Smith in a lost season. Like in his mind, he's like, I'm Ben McAdoo. This is my team. I figured something out. Geno Smith has got some talent. And like, is McAdoo not right to bench Eli because it was a lost season? It was a stupid decision from that standpoint. But was McAdoo right to kind of see something in Geno Smith? It's starting to look like, and obviously he has to continue this over the course of the rest of the season for any of us to ever take this seriously. Like if he does this for the rest of the season, I don't even know what to say or even what to make of this because there's no examples of this ever happening in NFL history. The only example I could think of, I think we might have talked about this, or I talked about this on a different pod, is R.A. Dickey from the Mets when he broke out late in his career.
Good
it's
call.
the only thing we can think of. And then he was never really great after that. He was never really elite after that.
And I'm low-key, and again, we'll transition back to Giants, but I am low-key happy for
so
Geno.
happy. This is the best story of the year by far.
It doesn't make any sense. Like the guy has two rookie tackles right now on a run-heavy team with no defense. So he's going to have to throw the football a lot, but he's doing well. And I couldn't be happy
posts to lock it, like just freaking stepping up through the pocket and ripping a deep post to lock it, like on target in stride. What is going on here?
Between the Detroit Lions and the Seattle Seahawks, like those defenses, they're horrendous. They're some of the worst
this year, dude. I am so excited. The Giants have that on their schedule. One of the things that I like, and we can transition back into some game film analysis, of course. But one of the things I'm so excited about is the Giants' offense is starting to make some progress, as we saw in this game. Like they're a really good offensive game, man. Like I said, they didn't punt after their first two possessions. That tells it all. But this is against a really good, at least talented Packers defense. They may not be playing great together right now for this coordinator or whatever. But there's talent. They're about to get at some point, dude. They're going to get the Seahawks defense, which has no talent whatsoever left on that defense, especially with with Adams out. And then that Lions defense, which is an even bigger disaster. You love to talk off pod about how embarrassing that Lions defense. Like Aaron Glenn, could be just he's might be fired in season.
I love Aaron Glenn. Like I watched a bit of Hard Knocks, and I was like, dude, this guy's legit as hell, man. I was like buying into it. I love Dan Campbell. Amon-Ra St. Brown's one of my favorite players. I think Aiden Hutchinson can be a stud. I love Rodrigo, that rookie. I liked him in college at Oklahoma State. We
were thinking about Malcolm Rodriguez. We were like, yeah, he's undersized. Will he convert? Whatever, he would have been a good pick. But it's just crazy. They're going to get that defense. And I think as long as Ron Rivera keeps him on board, which I'm praying he does, Jack Del Rio to me is the single worst defensive coordinator employed right now in the NFL. It's a disaster and an embarrassment that he's still employed. It's total nepotism. It's shades of Hal Hunter being employed by Pat. It really is. And even worse, it almost feels like a what's his name, a Tom Quinn situation. The longtime Giants special teams coach just kept effing up, and Mara, nobody knows what's going on. He had something with Mara. The speculation is he had some photos of Mara. I'm joking about that. None of that is actually true.
Obviously,
speculation.
Sound like my father.
Yeah, I know. That's like the classic conspiracy theory. But look, if he's there too for these two Giants games versus the Washington football team or whatever, the Commanders coming up, that's 4 games where the Giants offense can really get cooking, in my opinion. And so I'm really excited for that.
Absolutely. Before we get back, I just wanted to ask your opinion, just because we brought up Carson Wentz so much on this podcast. The comment by Ron Rivera to say, what's the difference between your team and the rest of the NFC East teams? And he just replies with one word, quarterback. Like to me, that might be one reason why, but your defense is freaking horrendous. And you have the gall to say that. Like, what are you doing to Carson Wentz?
He's supposed to be a defensive coach, by the way, Ron Rivera.
Exactly. And he's like, Carson Wentz is fragile. He's a very fragile mental person. Like the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts. And like, I followed like people like my friend Michael Kiston, all these guys who covered the Eagles. And like, they always would talk about like, dude, that's going to be terrible for Carson Wentz. But they liked it because they figured at this point, Carson Wentz was probably done, and they were right. And from a mental standpoint, the kid never recovered. He ended up getting traded. And now he's bouncing around, and you're not even halfway through the season. And you're saying the reason that your team sucks is your quarterback. I'm like, dude, it's a lot more than just your quarterback, man. Like that was a bad comment by Ron Rivera. Surprising too.
Really stupid comment by Ron Rivera, but I'll take all the turmoil I can possibly get from that Washington football team. I am almost disappointed we don't have those games coming up sooner. Like some of those are like toward the end of the year. I want it sooner because they're in full turmoil mode right now after a comment like that, and just with the way that defense is playing. Holy crap, is that defense poorly coordinated. But let's get back in this game here. Okay, back on track now. We have this 2nd and 7 play call after the quarterback draw, where again the Giants on 1st and then tried to run that fast 4 quarterback draw. Didn't work. They get hit with the 2nd and 7 situation here. And we like what we see here from a play calling standpoint, but ultimately there's really nowhere for Jones to go with the ball, so he makes the correct decision and runs with it.
Yeah, he makes the correct decision and runs with it. But I like there's the play action element to this with the end around. So you have the deception there, right? Because Jones is under center. It's just an offset, I guess you could say, I formation, because Tanner Hudson is acting as a fullback. So what you're going to get here from Daniel Jones, he's going to go into the play action with Matt Breida, and then the fullback Tanner Hudson is going to insert just like he's going to lead block. But he ends up releasing on a wheel route, which I really like. And you also have the end around element from Richie James coming from the opposite side of the formation to hold the defense in place. So I actually really like this play design. It just, Tanner Hudson's not creating too much separation against one of the better man covering tight ends in Devondre Campbell. I think the one window that might have been open that I'm glad Daniel Jones actually did not throw this football, because I think it would have been risky, was Marcus Johnson. Marcus Johnson is up against Jair Alexander, who's an outside leverage, and he runs a dig route, and he comes open here. And I'm really glad he didn't throw this here, because Quay Walker dropped to a depth. And I think this really speaks to the development of Daniel Jones and the maturity of Daniel Jones here, because that window might have been there, but there's no reason at this point of the game to risk it. So just use your legs to get the biscuit. Do not try and test a 4'4" athlete who is 6'4" with a ridiculous wingspan and Quay Walker. Just pick up the yards that are there. And I'm really, I really think
work back to make the tackle there. That's Walker, right?
Yeah, number 7.
So athletic, dude. This Walker kid is going to eventually be one of the better linebackers in the NFL. I loved him coming out of the draft. Thought he was worth a top 20 pick. That is freakish athleticism there to break back on that and make that tackle.
Absolutely. And to just drop to the depth to eliminate that deep dig. Because if he doesn't drop to that depth, then Marcus Johnson's open there. And Daniel Jones probably throws the football.
He's freakishly athletic and fast for a linebacker. The route, the vertical he ran with Saquon Barkley earlier that we showed early in the game, that was wild to watch.
And the size, man, too.
Like, that size, it's just insane.
It's just crazy. And here's just a small run. Daniel Bellinger, love Daniel Bellinger. He gets just tossed aside by Preston Smith right here for like a 2-yard gain on Saquon Barkley.
I will say this on this play, though. I thought if that was executed a little bit better, there was a really nice potential cutback lane for Barkley.
Oh, absolutely. Right here. Because you have these backside blocks. Chris Myrick, what does he do? He climbs up to the second level, and then he locates Devondre Campbell with Evan Neal also coming off Dean Lowry. I think Dean Lowry, the play went away, but I think Dean Lowry might have been able to cut off the angle. But I'm gonna bet on Saquon Barkley in that type of situation. So.
And next up, Nick, comes a play that I thought was one of the bigger plays of the game for the Giants, and just a key play in why they won this game. This is the 2nd and 8 play action rollout. Love the design here. Little shades of Pat Shurmur in the sense of having a half field high-low read here for Daniel Jones, which he did a great job reading out during his rookie season. And the rollout is in this design as well with the play action from the shotgun. And he does a great job of, like you said on the last podcast, showing patience on his rollout. And then once he actually makes the decision to throw this ball to Marcus Johnson, this is a really good throw. It's harder to see on the All-22 as we have it up on YouTube. It's easier to honestly see on the broadcast, but he's throwing from an off platform. He's throwing rolling to his right, off platform, and he gets really good velocity on this ball.
And you also see Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton clears all this out. You have the bunch with the wing to the field side where Daniel Jones rolls. He clears out number 21, Eric Stokes, takes the safety. Marcus Johnson's coming from the backside. So you're using front side, you're using backside routes in Daniel Jones' progression right here. And I think Marcus Johnson does a good job just releasing to the middle of the field and then breaking and finding space between the clear out from Darius Slayton and these underneath defenders who are paying attention to Richie James. Which basically ends up being off the play action rollout, a 3-level read right here with Darius Slayton, with Marcus Johnson, and then with Richie James just chilling the flat. And I think you might be able to see it a little bit better here, how he throws off balance on the run.
Just gets really good velocity on that ball.
Yeah, this is a really good throw. And he waits for Marcus Johnson. Like, look right here. Like, he's waiting for Marcus Johnson
to get into that window, that next window.
Get in this window between 29 and Devondre Campbell. So he has these defenders kind of bearing down on him. You can see how Daniel Jones, he does a really good job doing this too, man. He controls his body really well when he is on the run. Like, he slows down here. He slows down. He waits. He extends, and then he delivers the football right before 21 can go down and make a play on the ball.
Yeah, pretty good anticipation on the throw as well. Not nothing too amazing, but pretty damn good. But the key there is the velocity, and the ball placement stays on despite, the higher velocity there. And like you said, just so much patience there to wait for him to get into that open throwing window. So great stuff all around.
That was a second and 8 play to set up this first and 10 run that you just saw by Gary Brightwell. Ends up going for 3 yards. So that just ends up being a simple pin pull type of concept where you pull the backside guard here and it goes nowhere because John Feliciano kind of loses at the point of attack a little bit to set up this 2nd and 7, 13 personnel motion play action rollout to Chris Myrick that goes for 4 yards on a 2nd and 7 to set up the 3rd and 3. You see it right there.
Tried to play a lot. It's worked a lot. This one didn't work as great. I think just overall the execution wasn't as great as always. You can see that he doesn't come off the block as fast, Myrick, as we've seen Bellinger come off of it. And he's a little off balance coming off of that. And so once he catches the ball, he has to regain his balance, which slows down his ability to kind of create some yards upfield after the catch.
It's not even just that. It's also just Rashawn Gary, the effort from Rashawn Gary from the backside to track him down.
That is true.
You want Evan Neal here to really just not allow Rashawn Gary to win inside at all, because he's not even it's not even a part of the play. Like Rashawn Gary
really shouldn't be making this play from where he starts. It's a great point by you.
Look at Andrew Thomas and Ben Bredesen comboing number 93 here. I'm just engaged with Ben Bredesen. No, I'm not. I am on the ground because Andrew Thomas just floored this dude here.
You know what, though? You're right, though. If Evan Neal doesn't allow that backside pursuit here from 52, I mean, 52 really shouldn't even be in this play. Shouldn't be making this play. That is probably going for who knows, because he's probably cutting up field and getting vertical. And then you have 82, Bellinger in place to block down on 31. I don't know. That could have even been a touchdown.
I'm telling you, the Giants
inside.
It could have been. The Giants' offense is difficult to defend in the sense that they can align in 13 personnel in the red zone, and they have no issue throwing to these tight ends and taking advantage of the fact that the defense wants to stop the rushing attack, Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones's legs. And a lot of the time, the Giants have Daniel Bellinger, Chris Myrick, Tanner Hudson coming open. I mean, Daniel Bellinger has several touchdowns on this season, right?
Also, you have athleticism by. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine. I was just going to say Chris Myrick also has a touchdown this season. This could have been another touchdown. So the Giants are getting a pretty solid athletic ability from their tight end position. And this is a position
Jones on this play. This is good athleticism from the quarterback position. That is not as easy as it looks. If you're watching right now on the YouTube, that's something where a lot of, the Eli Mannings of the world can't even run this play with an Eli Manning, first of all. But if you did ask him to run this play, he's taking a sack 100 out of 100 times. There's no way he's flipping his hips back around with that kind of pursuit and making this throw. So that's something you gain when you have a Daniel Jones as your quarterback.
Absolutely. And another little part of this play. So for those who are listening, it's a play action rollout. The play action is to the weak side, and the Giants motion Darius Slayton to that side, and that forces the linebackers to shift in that direction, which allows Chris Myrick just a little bit more space after he chips and releases. Daniel Jones rolls out to his left, and he has to flip his entire body around, like Dan is saying here, and then square up to throw this football. Like he's saying, it's a very athletic play from Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Really impressive game from Jones. So we'll get to that. I mean, we don't usually typically do evaluation of the quarterback on this podcast, like grade 1 to 10. But this was, I thought, the best game Daniel Jones has played potentially in his Giants career. I still think I'd go with the Tampa first week game, but after watching it on film, man, I don't know. There were a lot of really good plays from Jones, and just one play that I would want to have back. The whole game, that one throw to Slayton is probably the only play I want back.
I'll say this. The Giants win this football game because of Daniel Jones. Like, Daniel Jones is a key reason why they win this football game. Now, if you want to be like, well, if they had Josh Allen, yes, of course. If they had Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, but still, like, Daniel Jones did everything that he could and everything that the coaching staff asked him to do and put this team into a position to win after they were down 17-3. And then they actually won. It's not just like, well, they were in position to win like it was last year. And then, something stupid happened. They jumped off sides. No, they actually won the freaking football game. Daniel Jones deserves a lot of credit for that.
In addition to that, when he lost his best player, the player who we've been saying is the entire offense, Saquon Barkley, that's when he had his biggest drive, the 91-yard drive, 11 plays, or it was 15 plays, 91-yard drive. Yep. And like we said earlier throughout this podcast, he did a great job manipulating the safeties and the linebackers with his eyes and also accounting for where they're going to be and what depth they're going to be at. He did a great job of using athleticism, like you're seeing on this throw right now, to make the throw out to David Sills. The throw we had before, the little pass back to Myrick, using athleticism to kind of aid him in the rollout game. So overall, Daniel Jones had a really phenomenal game for the Giants. Like I said, this has got to be, for me, either the first or one or two for the best game I've personally seen from Daniel Jones since he became a Giant.
You want to know something I'm thinking about watching this play? This is the play action rollout with Gary Brightwell in the flat, and then David Sills fake like he's blocking and then just presents himself as a target where Mark Sanchez is like, turn around, turn around,
Yeah,
screaming
yeah,
at
yeah.
David Sills. But Rashawn Gary is the player being blocked by David Sills initially, and then he sees Gary Brightwell going in the flat. So Rashawn Gary tries to throw a block on Gary Brightwell to alter his space, and that puts Rashawn Gary on the ground and not Gary Brightwell. And that kind of opened the window for Daniel Jones to throw the football to David Sills. So
that window is not going to be there otherwise. You're 100% right about that.
Now, it's plausible to surmise that Rashawn Gary would have kept expanding with Gary Brightwell. But even so, like if you're Rashawn Gary, you're laying on the ground after failing to knock Gary Brightwell off of his path, and you'll look up and you just see the brown pigskin flying over your face, and David Sills is there catching the football. You're probably like, damn it. Like I screwed up.
They had two options because if he doesn't go to Sills there, he could have probably hit Brightwell as well.
For a touchdown, maybe even too.
Yep.
And that sets up this touchdown run by Gary Brightwell after the throwaway, I believe, right here, which I feel like, again, this is another
nothing there.
Really smart play by Daniel Jones right here. You just have two wide receivers out here. You're just going to run a play action to Gary Brightwell. You're trying to get David Sills in the back of the end zone or Daniel Bellinger in the flat, and there's no reason to risk it. Just throw it to the 12th man in the back of the end zone, and then it looks like he hits the cameraman. I'm telling you, man, this was a rough day for the doctors and the cameraman. If you slow that, it hits the camera, but it just misses this camera guy's face, and he's so nonchalant about it.
And if he had gotten knocked down from that throw, that you would have seen Graham Gano somehow right by his side pick him up.
Graham Gano would have, he would have just appeared, man. It would have just happened.
Number 9, picking guys up when they get knocked down on sidelines. But yeah, good touchdown run here from Brightwell. Yeah,
this is just a simple touchdown run where he's just hitting the A gap, and the offensive line wins at the point of attack, it seems like. And Gary Brightwell just keeps his feet moving, and Gary Brightwell was somebody we didn't even
blockers coming in to push him in. I love a good push in from the blockers. I feel like the smart teams now, or I've even seen some smart teams like motioning in like H-back types or like bigger guys to kind of like their role is to push the guy through. I just think like to push the momentum forward.
I want to see Dexter Lawrence do that. But look who the main guy pushing everybody is other than Evan Neal. Chris Myrick comes in last second and gives that extra effort right there. Chris Myrick, dude. Again, all these guys are guys we didn't even think would make the team, right, Dan? And here they are. Yeah. Key contributors winning games against teams with one loss at the time.
High effort players. All right, let's get to this final seventh drive, the 6-play touchdown drive with Barkley at the end. And this was the defining drive for the Giants. This was when we know they had a chance to win this football game. They went up here. First down play call, by the way, it didn't work, but I love this design.
I like this design a lot. And this is the first play that Saquon Barkley is back. You just come out and split back with Matt Breida to your right, Saquon Barkley to your left. You fake a screen to Saquon Barkley and you throw the actual screen to Matt Breida. And this was one play where I was like, yo, this could have went wrong for the New York Giants, and it could have been intercepted by Preston Smith right here. Like, I'm not going to fault Daniel Jones for throwing this here, but Preston Smith is sitting and he reads this play. If Preston Smith, if you're watching on YouTube, doesn't take these 2 steps outward to just kind of match what Evan Neal is doing, this could easily have been an interception. He just misses knocking this ball down. Yeah,
and it was obviously a play that wasn't executed the way the Giants want, but I just like the idea of having the split backs here in the shotgun, having the design look like it's going to go to Saquon Barkley where all defensive tension is, and then coming back to a screen on the other side. Screen didn't work really at all in this game. The Packers played screens really well, but before this game, the Giants have had some really good success again running the screen game.
Absolutely. And then now we're going to get Saquon Barkley involved. So the Giants come out here, and this is going to be the 2nd and 10. Goes 40 yards to Saquon Barkley, who is aligned off the line of scrimmage in a stack with Richie James. And basically what happens here is there's some sort of miscommunication between